I have died once. To be precise, I was pushed off the rooftop of the 4th floor of the military family compound. As I fell, I heard someone screaming downstairs, and someone else calling for an ambulance. But I knew it was too late. The moment the back of my head hit the ground, I saw Lu Zhixuan standing at the edge of the rooftop, looking down at me from above. She was wearing that light yellow dress, which my mother-in-law had just bought for her last month. The wind lifted her skirt, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. That smile, I will never forget it until the day I die. And then I woke up. August 17, 1993, 3 o'clock in the morning. The cicadas outside the window were deafening. I was gasping for air, the sweat on my back soaking a patch of the bedsheet. Turning my head, the bed beside me was empty. Fu Qingjun was still at the military base. Hadn't been back in 3 days. Spread out on the table was that application to accompany the troops. The approval stamp had been affixed, the bright red mark glaring under the moonlight. I stared at that piece of paper for a full 10 minutes. In my past life, it was on this day that I received the approval. Overjoyed, I packed my bags that very night and left for the station the next day. And then, when I arrived at the compound, my mother-in-law Zhao Xiulan complained that I couldn't bear a son, telling everyone she met that the Fu family's lineage would come to an end. Lu Zhixuan moved into the family quarters under the guise of being a childhood sweetheart, frequently bringing soup and meals to the barracks. The military wives in the compound gossiped about me, saying I wasn't good enough for Fu Qingjun and that he would eventually replace me. And what about Fu Qingjun? He was always training, carrying out missions, or in meetings. Occasionally, when he came back, he would just say coldly, "Don't talk back to Mom. She's getting older." I endured it for 3 years. In 3 years, I went from being a chief surgeon at the provincial hospital to a sallow-faced housewife stuck around the stove all day. In the end, all I got was a body that fell from the 4th floor. The official verdict: postpartum depression, suicide. Ridiculous. I, Shen Yenan, whose hands have been steady enough to thread a needle since childhood while holding a scalpel, would I ever think of ending my life? It was Lu Zhixuan who pushed me. The hands I saw before I died were painted with bean paste-colored nail polish, the bottle my mother-in-law brought her from the provincial capital. Thinking of this, my hand had already reached for the military dependents. Application on the table. The moment my fingertips touched the paper, it was ice cold. I gripped the paper and, without hesitation, tore it apart. Rip, shreds of paper fell through my fingers, like a silent snowfall. The moonlight stretched my shadow long across the ground, like another version of me watching in silence. I breathed a sigh of relief. Shen Yenan, from today onwards, you owe no one anything. After dawn, I did the second thing. I called Fu Qingjuan's unit and asked the messenger to relay a message. Please ask Battalion Commander Fu to come back. I have something to say in person. The correspondent paused on the other end. Sister-in-law, the Battalion Commander Fu has tactical drills today, so he might, just tell him it's a family emergency. I cut him off. After hanging up, I started rummaging through drawers and cabinets. Marriage certificate, household register, property deed. I found them all and laid them neatly on the table. Then I sat there, waiting. I waited until 2 in the afternoon. When the door was pushed open, a wave of heat rushed in first, followed by Fu Qingjuan's face, cold enough to freeze. He was still in his training uniform, hadn't even taken off his hat, and his boots were caked with yellow soil. What's the rush? His tone was impatient, his brows furrowed, as if I had interrupted something of utmost importance. Exactly the same as in my past life. Always like this. My matters are always put last. I didn't stand up. Fu Qingjun. Divorce. The room fell silent for 2 seconds. His footsteps halted. Before he even reached the table, he stood frozen in place, as if nailed to the spot. What did you say? I looked up at him. This man was 185 meters tall, broad-shouldered and long-legged, with cold, sharp features. The commanding presence he had cultivated over years of leading troops was indeed intimidating. In my past life, I would get nervous just seeing him, not even daring to speak loudly. But now, Divorce. I slid the marriage certificate across the table. I've already made up my mind. Just sign it. Fu Qingjun stared at the red marriage certificate on the table, his pupils slightly contracting. He didn't move. 3 seconds later, he walked over, took off his hat, tossed it onto the sofa, then pulled out the chair opposite me and sat down. Who pissed you off? His tone softened a little compared to before, but it still carried that condescending feeling. As if my mention of divorce was just a tantrum, just a way of acting spoiled. No one's provoking me. I looked into his eyes. I've thought it through. We're not right for each other. His brows furrowed even tighter. Shen Yenan, I came back from the drill this morning, and you're telling me this. See, even when I brought up something as big as divorce. His first reaction was still, I had interfered with his work. I took a deep breath, pulled the torn pieces of the military spouse application from the drawer, and dumped them onto the table. I've torn up the military dependents. Application 2. I'm not going to the compound anymore. This marriage ends here. Fu Qingjuan's gaze shifted from the pile of shredded paper to my face. I saw his Adam's apple move. He didn't say anything, but sat up straight, his right hand unconsciously gripping the hat on his knee. That was a sign of his nervousness, after 4 years together in the past life. I knew that much. It was fine yesterday, he said hoarsely. What exactly happened? Okay. I almost laughed. It was fine yesterday. In the past life. It was also just fine. He went to the compound, was bullied thoroughly, fell from the 4th floor, and died completely. Fu Qingjun, let me ask you a question. Go ahead. Lu Zhishuan. Who is she? His expression didn't change much. Only his brows moved almost imperceptibly. The child of my mother's distant relative. You know. Then why does she come to your camp all day? She. Fu Qingjun paused. She came to see my mother. Your mom lives in the compound. What would she go to the barracks for? Silence. He didn't answer. I nodded. All right, you don't have to answer. It doesn't matter anymore anyway. I opened the household register and spread it flat in front of him. I don't want any of the property. This house is yours. I'll just move out. Just sign the papers. And we'll part on good terms. Fu Qingjuan's face darkened. Not with anger, but with confusion. Like a tactical simulation suddenly encountering an unforeseen variable. The entire battle plan was thrown into disarray. Shen Yenan, calm down. He stood up. I am calm. You are not calm. He walked over to me, bent down, and placed his hands on the armrests on either side of my chair, trapping me in between. When we locked eyes up close, his eyes were a deep black, carrying a sharp, oppressive intensity. In my past life, I would have panicked, my heart racing, and I would have lowered my head to look away. But now, I reached out, pressed my hand against his shoulder, and pushed him away with force. Fu Qingjun, can't you understand human speech? His body paused for a moment. Probably no one had ever spoken to him like this before. A battalion commander leading over 100 soldiers, pushed by his wife in his own home. The muscles in his face tensed for an instant, then he took half a step back. Fine. His voice dropped low. Take a couple of days to cool off first. We'll talk about this later. There is no later. Anymore. I stood up and went to the bedroom to grab the suitcase I had packed long ago. A 28-inch suitcase held all my personal belongings, a few clothes, 2 medical notebooks, and the bracelet my mother left me. In this marriage, it felt like I had never truly moved in. Where are you going? Fu Qingjun followed out, his voice urgent. Back to the provincial capital. I carried my suitcase to the door. On Monday, I'll go to the hospital to process my reinstatement. Reinstatement? Didn't you resign? The resignation hasn't been approved yet. I turned back to look at him. I've made up my mind. I'm going back to being a doctor. He stood in the middle of the living room, his tall figure blocking half of the sunset light. For the first time, a look of panic appeared on that cold, hard face. But I didn't give him a chance to speak. Think about the divorce. I'm not in a hurry, but my stance won't change. The door closed. I carried my suitcase down the stairs, my footsteps light. As I stepped out of the apartment building, A wave of hot air hit me, and the cicadas above were screaming hysterically. I looked up at the fourth floor. In my past life, that was where I fell from. A slight twitch at the corner of the mouth. Not sure if it counts as a smile. Shen Yenan. In this life, live only for yourself. The train back to the provincial capital takes 4 hours. I'm sitting in the hard-seat carriage, next to a middle-aged woman dozing off while holding a child, and across from me are 2 men cracking sunflower seeds and playing chess. The green train sways gently. The fan creaks as it spins, and the heat can't escape. But in my heart, I feel an unprecedented sense of peace. In my past life, I took this train in the opposite direction, from the provincial capital to the station, with the military family approval letter tucked in my arms, a silly grin plastered across my face. I thought I could finally reunite with my husband, finally live a stable life. And what happened? I closed my eyes and sorted through the memories of my past life. After arriving at the compound, there were 3 people who truly harmed me. The first, Lu Zhishuan. On the surface, she was grandma's distant niece, but in reality, she had been secretly in love with Fu Qingjun since high school. After I moved into the compound, she showed up every few days, bringing chicken soup one day and cotton shoes the next. Everyone in the compound thought she was the future daughter-in-law of the Fu family. She spread rumors saying I bring bad luck to my husband, that I can't have children, and that I have connections with people outside. Each rumor pierced into my body like a needle, and I couldn't find the source, so I had to endure it all alone. The second one, my mother-in-law, Zhao Xiulan. She favored sons over daughters and resented me for not giving birth to a son. The following year, I became pregnant, and she forced me to drink all kinds of folk remedies every day, claiming they would change the baby's gender. As a result, I had a miscarriage. After the miscarriage, she grew even more disdainful of me, saying I couldn't even keep a child safe. The third one, I never confirmed this person's identity until the day I died. That day on the stage, Lu Zhishuan wasn't alone. There was also a person standing behind her, but I was falling too fast to get a clear look. In this lifetime, I must find out who that person is. By the time the train arrived at the station, it was already 9 o'clock in the evening. The night in the provincial capital is far livelier than in a small county town. The roadside food stalls are bustling with smoky aromas, and watermelon vendors are still hawking their goods. I walked out of the station with my suitcase and took a taxi directly to the affiliated hospital of my alma mater. Driver. To the affiliated hospital of Provincial Medical University. Going to the hospital this late. Are you okay, miss? The driver asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. Go find someone. My mentor, Professor Lin Zhengqing. In my previous life, when I resigned, Professor Lin earnestly advised me 3 times. He said I had the steadiest hands among all the students he had mentored, and it would be a shame to give up clinical practice. I didn't listen. For a man who never comes home, I traded my scalpel for a spatula. Looking back now, I was foolish beyond redemption. By the time I arrived at the hospital, it was already 9:30. Most of the lights in the outpatient building were off, with only the inpatient department still lit. I stood still at the entrance of the surgical on-call room. Take a deep breath and knock on the door. Who is it? A young voice came from inside, likely the resident on duty. Hello. Is Professor Lin Zhengqing in today? Professor Lin. The person inside opened the door. A young man wearing glasses. Professor Lin left work early. Come back tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. As I turned and walked out of the inpatient building, I bumped into someone at the corner of the corridor. To be precise, I almost bumped into them. The other person dodged quickly, sidestepping to let me pass, and nearly dropped the medical chart folder in their hand. Sorry, Shen Yenan. I looked up. In front of me was a woman in a white coat, with short hair, a round face, and bright eyes. A face I hadn't seen in a long time, but I recognized her instantly. Qian Hong. Qian Hong. My college classmate, a resident doctor. The only person in my past life who spoke up for me after the incident. She was no longer at this hospital at the time, having gone to a military hospital in the north for further training. When she heard about what happened to me, she rushed back specially, but it was already too late. At this moment, her eyes were wide open as she stared at me, looking as if she had seen a ghost. How are you here? Weren't you supposed to join the army? Last week I saw your letter saying you were leaving. I looked at her, and suddenly felt a lump in my throat, but I held it back. I'm not going. I want to come back to work. Qian Hong opened her mouth and couldn't close it for a long time. Then she grabbed my hand and said, "Come on, let's go to the duty room first. And you tell me everything from the beginning." That night, I slept on the small bed in the duty room. Qian Hong insisted on giving me her blanket, wrapping herself in her white coat and curling up on the chair. I didn't tell her about the rebirth. If I had, she would have thought I was crazy. I only said that the marriage was unhappy and that I wanted to come back to work. She didn't ask further. That was Qian Hong. She never pressed you about things you didn't want to talk about, only reaching out when you needed her. The next morning, I went to Professor Lin's office. The door was open, and he was sitting inside, drinking tea and reading the newspaper. In his 60s, with graying hair, but still vigorous and energetic. Seeing me come in, he pushed up his reading glasses, paused for a moment, then slowly put down the newspaper. "Xiao Shen, Professor Lin." I stood before him. "I want to come back." He stared at me for several seconds. Then he pulled a folder out of the drawer and took out a piece of paper. It was my resignation letter. "I never approved it," he said. "I've been holding on to it for 2 months. HR has urged me 3 times, but I've turned them all down." He gently placed the paper on the desk, looked up at me, and in his eyes there was no reproach, only the calm unique to an elderly person. "Have you figured it out?" I nodded. "All right then." He picked up the resignation letter and, right in front of me, tore it up. The sound of the paper falling into the trash bin was very light, but it felt like something had struck me hard in my heart. "Report for duty next Monday. Start with Team 2. He took a sip from his teacup, as if nothing had happened. "The feel of the operating table gets rusty after 2 months without touching it. Start as an assistant and get your touch back." "Okay. Also." He set down the cup and glanced at me. "I won't ask about other matters, but if you're coming back, do it with your feet on the ground. Surgery doesn't support idle hands." "I understand." Coming out of Professor Lin's office, I stood in the hallway, sunlight slanting through the window and falling on my feet. I looked down at my own hands. My right hand was open, fingers long and slender, the thin calluses on the pad still there. In my past life, these hands held a spatula for 3 years, until they could no longer even steady a scalpel. Not in this life. Over the next week, I did 3 things. First, I rented a place near the hospital. 1 bedroom, 1 living room, $120 a month. Simple, but enough to live in. Second, I went to a second-hand bookstore and bought over a dozen surgical journals, catching up on all the literature I had missed over the past 2 months. Third, I sent a letter to Fu Qingjun. The content of the letter was very simple. "I have returned to the provincial capital and resumed my position at the affiliated hospital. Let me know when you've made a decision about the divorce, and I'll send the agreement. No need to provide living expenses, I have enough to support myself. Shen Yenan." On the 3rd day after sending the letter, I received a phone call. It wasn't from Fu Qingjun. It was from my mother-in-law, Zhao Xiulan. The call came to the hospital's front desk. A nurse came running to get me, saying a woman was looking for me, and her tone was particularly aggressive. When I picked up, the voice on the other end was indeed as sharp as I remembered. "Shen Yenan, what do you mean? Qingjun said you want a divorce. Have you lost your mind?" I moved the receiver 2 centimeters away to avoid damaging my eardrums. "Mom, don't call me Mom. Do you deserve it?" Her voice rose an octave. "Back then, you were the one who shamelessly insisted on marrying into the Fu family. Now that your wings are strong, you want to fly away. Let me tell you, no way. In my past life, words like these would have made me cry from grievance. Right now, I just find them noisy. Ms. Xiao." I used a respectful title. There was a pause on the other end of the line, as if they hadn't quite registered who I was calling. Divorce is a matter between Fu Qingjun and me, I said, my voice steady. If he himself disagrees, he can tell me directly. You don't need to worry about it. I'm still at work. I'll hang up now. How dare you hang up on me? Shen Yenan. Beep. Hung up. The front desk nurse beside me stole a glance at me, then quickly lowered her head again. I returned to the department with a blank expression. Just as I expected. The script from my past life was replaying itself. Zhao Xiulan was a person with an extremely strong desire for control, unable to tolerate anyone deviating from her plans. But in this life, she will find that I am no longer the pushover she can mold at will. Returning to the office, Qian Hong leaned in. Whose call was that? You look terrible. My mother-in-law. Ex-mother-in-law. Almost there. She looked at me, as if she wanted to say something but held back. And in the end, she just patted me on the shoulder. In the afternoon, there was an appendectomy, and I went into the operating room with Dr. Zhou from the second team. After 2 months without holding a scalpel, my hands were indeed a bit rusty. But when the shadowless lamp lit up and the smell of iodine filled the air, that familiar sense of focus returned. Dr. Zhou glanced at me from across the table a couple of times but said nothing. It wasn't until he was suturing that he spoke. Your hands are steady. Thanks, Dr. Zhou. Professor Lin's students are never mediocre. He took off his gloves. There's a gallbladder surgery next week. You'll be the first assistant. Okay. Everything was starting anew. And the bomb I had been waiting for detonated on the 10th day after my reinstatement. That afternoon, I had just stepped off the operating table, changed my clothes, and was heading to the cafeteria. When I reached the lobby of the outpatient building, I stopped. A woman was sitting on a bench in the lobby. She wore a pale yellow dress, with long hair cascading over her shoulders, holding a thermos in her hands, looking around as if searching for someone. Lu Zhishuan. My feet felt as if nailed to the ground. My heart suddenly raced half a beat faster. It wasn't fear, it was hatred. The kind of hatred that seeps out from the marrow of the bones, cold and soaked in a lifetime of blood and tears. She hasn't seen me yet. I take a deep breath, clench my fists, my nails digging into the flesh of my palms. No rush. Shen Yenan, don't rush. In your past life, you lost because of impulsiveness, lost because of trust, lost because you thought giving in would bring peace. In this life, you will make her walk into the trap step by step, walk in with a smile, crawl out in tears. I unclenched my fist, turned around, and walked another way. But a detail caught the corner of my eye. The thermos in her hand had a sticky note on its lid. The note read, Qingjun, remember to drink it while it's hot. He's in the provincial capital. Fu Qingjun came to the provincial capital but didn't contact me. However, Lu Zhishuan knows where he is. Interesting. Very interesting. I didn't confront anyone. That night, back in my rented room, I cooked a bowl of noodles, added a poached egg, and sat by the window eating slowly. I reorganized the timeline of my past life in my mind. In my previous life, I met Lu Zhishuan within the first month of arriving at the compound. When my mother-in-law introduced her, she said, "This is Zhishuan, the granddaughter of my cousin. She grew up with Qingjun, so just treat her like a younger sister. Treat her like a younger sister." That little sister kept going to the military camp every few days to bring my husband things, sending him messages in the middle of the night asking, "Brother, are you tired today?" Everyone in the compound just assumed she was part of the Fu family. And me? I was the outsider, the inconvenient, unwelcome intruder. I took a bite of the fried egg, and the yolk spilled out, burning my tongue. But the question now is, why did Lu Zhishuan appear in the provincial capital? She didn't have a job, and in her previous life, she had always lived near the compound, relying on her mother-in-law's support, unless someone had called her here. And that person, thinking of this, I put down my chopsticks and reached for my bag. In the side pocket of the bag, there was a letter. It was the reply to the letter I had sent to Fu Qingjun, which had arrived 3 days ago. I had never opened it. Tearing open the envelope, inside was just a single sheet of paper with a few lines of writing, the strokes firm and forceful. I do not agree to the divorce. Let's talk face to face. I'll come to the provincial capital to find you this weekend. Fu Qingjun. The date of the signature was 5 days ago. In other words, he should have arrived today. And Lu Zhishuan also happened to show up at my hospital today. What a coincidence. What a coincidence indeed. I folded the letter paper and put it back into the envelope. I stood up and walked to the window. The provincial capital's night was brightly lit, with the night market stalls downstairs emitting the smoky aroma of barbecue. I looked at my face reflected in the glass, a bit thinner, but my eyes were far brighter than in my past life. Fu Qingjun. Come on. This time, I'm not waiting for you to come and take me away. I waited for you, then watched you take a step and realize, the gentle and lovely little sister by your side is a venomous snake. The next day was Saturday. At 7 in the morning, someone knocked on my door. I finished washing up and was about to go out to buy breakfast when I opened the door. Fu Qingjun was standing in the hallway. He was wearing a gray short-sleeved shirt and army green pants. Not in uniform, but that sharp, commanding aura still made it obvious he was a soldier. He was holding a bag of steamed buns in his hand, probably from old Lee's shop at the alley entrance downstairs, steam still rising from them. How did you know I live here? I asked your colleague. His gaze swept across the cramped rental room behind me, about a dozen square meters, with a bed, a desk, and a wardrobe, and the paint on the walls was peeling a bit. The corners of his mouth drooped slightly. Want to come in? I stepped aside. It's small. Don't mind it. He didn't respond to that, picked up the buns, and went inside, placing the bag on the table. Have you eaten? Not yet. Eat first. I glanced at him, didn't refuse, and took a bite of the bun. Pork-filled. Not bad. He didn't eat, standing by the window with his back to me, looking outside. We were silent for half a minute. Are you really sure? He asked. Yeah. Why? It's not right. What's wrong? He turned around and faced me. Those eyes stared straight at me, as if interrogating a criminal. In my past life, I was most afraid of that look in his eyes. But now, I swallowed the bun and wiped my mouth with a napkin. Fu Qingjun, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Answer me honestly. He didn't say yes or no, just stood there. First, in the year and a half we've been married, how many times have you come home? His lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. Let me count for you. 11 times. The longest time you stayed home was 3 days. The shortest, 2 hours, just long enough for dinner before leaving. I have work, I know. Second question. I cut him off. Lu Zhishuan. How many times a week does she go to the camp? His expression finally changed. It wasn't guilt, it was confusion. As if he genuinely hadn't realized this was a problem. She went to see my mom, and brought some things along. Your mother lives in the compound. What was she doing at the barracks? I'll ask you one more time. Sometimes my mom had her bring some soup over. Then you never let me go to the barracks once in a year and a half. When those words landed, the room fell silent. The sound of bicycle bells came from outside the window, and someone downstairs was shouting, "Tofu pudding, tofu pudding." Fu Qingjuan's Adam's apple moved up and down once. The third question. I stood up, looking straight at him. Have you ever liked me? His pupils contracted slightly. What do you mean? Literally. From start to finish. Did you ever have any feelings for me? Or was it just your mother making the decision, thinking it was time for you to find someone to marry? He fell silent. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. He didn't say a word. The faint hope lingering in my heart was snuffed out like a candle pinched between 2 fingers. All right. I let out a faint smile. I have my answer now. Shen Yenan, you don't need to explain. I pulled open the drawer, took out a pre-written divorce agreement, and placed it on the table. I don't want any of the property. Just sign it, and I'll submit the documents to the Civil Affairs Bureau on Monday. He looked down at the agreement, reading it word by word. I noticed that the index finger of his right hand was trembling slightly. Then he looked up. I won't sign. I had already expected this. Fu Qingjun was the same in my past life, not because he couldn't bear to let me go, but because in his mind, divorce was a disgraceful thing. An officer whose wife initiates a divorce. It wouldn't sound good if word got out. It doesn't matter if you don't sign. I pushed the agreement in front of him. After 2 years of separation, the court will decide. I can wait. His jawline tightened. Shen Yenan, what exactly are you making a fuss about? Did someone say something to you? Did someone say something to me? Yes, there is. In my past life, the last words your dear sister said to me were, "Sis, I'm sorry." Then she pushed me off the rooftop. I closed my eyes, forcing that hatred back down into my chest. No one told me anything. My voice was calm. I figured it out on my own. You can go now. I walked to the door and opened it. Thanks for the buns. They were pretty good. Fu Qingjun stood there, clenching and unclenching his fists, over and over again. Finally, he picked up the agreement on the table, folded it twice, and put it into his pants pocket. I'm not signing it. As he walked past me, he paused for a moment and said in a low voice, "This isn't over." Then he left. The sound of footsteps gradually faded away down the hallway. I closed the door and stood leaning against it for a long while. My heart was beating a little fast. Not because I was nervous. It was because, just now, in his eyes, I saw something I had never seen in my past life. Not anger, not impatience. It was confusion. It was panic. It was as if he had suddenly realized that the shadow that had always stood quietly behind him had taken on a shape of its own. I let out a breath. Who cares? Whether he's panicking or not is his business. Right now, I only care about 2 things. First, why Lu Zhishuan showed up in the provincial capital. Second, who was the person standing behind her on the rooftop in her past life. Thinking of this, I walked to the table, took out a pen and a blank sheet of paper. I wrote down 3 names on the paper. Lu Zhishuan, Zhao Xiulan. The third person, in my past life. I didn't get a clear look, only remembering a vague silhouette. Not tall, with a slender build. Who else was in the compound that day? I closed my eyes and tried hard to recall. 1993, no. The incident in my past life happened in 1996. The deep autumn of that year. That day was the military family day, and there were many people in the compound. I was called up to the rooftop by Lu Zhishuan under the pretext of talking about personal matters. After arriving, her attitude suddenly changed. She said, "Sister, I'm sorry." And then, wait. My eyes snapped open. The way she said that sentence didn't sound like she was talking to me. It was more like, she was confirming something with someone behind her. It was as if someone had nodded, and only then did she make her move. That person was not an accomplice. They were the mastermind. The one who instructed Lu Zhishuan to kill me was someone else entirely. I gripped the pen, the tip poking a small hole into those 2 question marks. Who? Exactly? At this point in time, who would want me dead? Whose path did my marriage to Fu Qingjun obstruct? Suddenly, a knock sounded at the door. "Nianan, are you in there?" It was Qian Hong's voice. I folded the paper and tucked it into the drawer, then walked over to open the door. Qian Hong stood at the doorway, holding 2 cups of soy milk in her hands. "I just saw a man walking out downstairs. Quite tall. Is he your boyfriend?" "Ex-boyfriend. Almost." She handed me the soy milk. "Did he come to persuade you to go back?" "Yeah." I didn't agree. "That's right." She leaned against the doorframe and took a sip of the soy milk. "To be honest, I've always thought it wasn't worth it for you to marry so far away. You studied for so many years, performed surgeries so well, and in the end, you went to scrub pots for someone else. What for?" I lowered my head and smiled. "What's the point? In my past life, all I wanted was the title of military wife and the illusion of reunion. Now that I think about it, it's really a joke. Sister Hong, I want to ask you something." "Go ahead. While you were training at the military hospital, did you know someone named Lu Zhishuan?" Qian Hong thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No recollection." "What's wrong?" "Nothing." I took a sip of soy milk. "Just asking." She tilted her head and glanced at me, but didn't press further. "All right, come to me if you need anything. Oh, by the way, There's a gallbladder removal scheduled for next Monday. And Dr. Zhou specifically asked for you to be the first assistant. Make sure you perform well. Got it. After she left, I stood by the window, watching the people coming and going downstairs. The sunlight in the provincial capital in August was blindingly white, making people dizzy, but my mind was incredibly clear. In my past life, I lived like a blind person, led by the nose for 3 years. In this life, my eyes are wide open. It doesn't matter that Fu Qingjun won't sign. Lu Zhishuan showing up is actually better, saves me the trouble of looking for her. As for the third person hiding in the shadows, I'll find them out, one at a time. On Monday morning, I arrived at the hospital on time. After changing into surgical scrubs, I followed Dr. Zhou into the operating room. Laparoscopic cholecystectomy is not a major surgery, but it requires seamless coordination. My hands are exceptionally steady today, holding the scope, exposing, dissecting, clamping. Every step is clean and precise. Dr. Zhou didn't say a word the entire time, until the final suturing, when he glanced at me from above his mask. Professor Lin didn't misjudge you. Brother Zhou flatters me. It's not flattery. He put down the instrument. There's a provincial surgical skills competition next month. Are you going? I was taken aback. I had heard about this competition in my previous life too, but by then I had already resigned. I just got back. Professor Lin nominated you. He took off his gloves. Go back and think it over. Give me your answer the day after tomorrow. I stood in the hallway for a long time after coming out of the operating room. Provincial surgical competition. If I win a place, it will be decisive for my promotion to attending physician. In my previous life, I missed this opportunity, but in this life, it has actually stopped right in front of me. I clenched my fists. Go. Why not go? I was about to head to the department when my phone rang. In 1993, mobile phones were still those brick-like big brothers, and the only one in the department was at the front desk. The nurse at the front desk came running to call me again. Dr. Shen. Phone call. I picked it up. Hello? Shen Yenan. It was a woman's voice. Soft, gentle, with a slight southern accent. My fingers suddenly tightened around the receiver. This is Zhishuan, she said. Sister, long time no see. I heard you're back in the provincial capital. I happen to be here today as well, and I was thinking of inviting you out for a chat. Is that convenient? Her tone was as warm and affectionate as if she were speaking to a real sister. In her past life, she was the same way. Always sweet, always gentle, always appearing harmless. Until the moment she reached out her hand to push you. I looked at the sunlight outside the window, and the corners of my mouth slowly curled up. All right, I said. Name a place, and I'll come find you. Great. How about the Qingfeng tea house across from the hospital? At 3 in the afternoon. Okay. See you at 3. I hung up the phone. When I put the microphone back, my palms were completely sweaty. It wasn't nervousness. It was excitement. Lu Zhishuan, you came to me of your own accord. In my past life, it took you 3 years to drive me to the rooftop. In this life, let's see, without the accomplices from the compound, what waves can you stir up all by yourself? At 3 in the afternoon, by the window on the second floor of Qingfeng Tea House. When I arrived, Lu Zhishuan was already sitting there. Exactly as I remembered, an oval face, almond-shaped eyes, thin lips, looking delicate and gentle. She wore a light blue floral dress, her hair tucked behind her ears, revealing a pair of pearl earrings. Those were from my mother-in-law. I recognized them. In her past life, those earrings were given to her by Zhao Shulan in front of the entire courtyard on her birthday. But on my birthday, my mother-in-law only said, "Another year older. Hurry up and have a child." I walked over and sat down. Sister. She stood up, took my hand, and guided me to sit down. You've lost so much weight. Is the food not good here? Her palm was warm, and her grip was just right. Everything felt so natural. If I didn't know who she really was, I might have actually been moved. I'm fine. I pulled my hand away and smiled. What brings you to the provincial capital? Oh, Auntie asked me to come. She lowered her eyes. looking a little embarrassed. Auntie said she was worried about you being here alone, so she told me to come check on you. Auntie, Zhao Xilan sent her to check on me. Check on what? To see if I've truly given up, or to act as a mediator and persuade me to go back. I picked up the tea on the table, lifted the lid, blew on it, but didn't drink. Jishuan, how long have you known Qingjun? Her eyelashes trembled almost imperceptibly. Since childhood, our families lived in the same compound, she said with a smile. But that was all a long time ago. We rarely see each other now that we've grown up. Rarely see each other. Humph. In her past life, she visited the camp 3 times a week, yet called it rarely seeing each other. So, do you have a partner now? I asked. No, I don't. She lowered her head, her fingers circling the rim of the cup. I just haven't met the right one. When she said this, the corner of her eye glanced at me, quickly, so quickly that most people wouldn't notice. But I noticed. That glance carried a hint of testing. Observing my reaction after hearing the words no partner, I decided to play along. Then you'd better hurry up, I said lightly. With your qualities, you'll have no trouble finding someone. She pursed her lips and smiled. You're teasing me, sis. The atmosphere seemed perfectly harmonious. 2 women sat in a tea house, chatting and laughing like a pair of close sisters. Who could tell that in a past life, one of them had pushed the other off a building? I waited for a while, letting her bring up the main topic herself. Indeed, after 3 rounds of tea, her expression turned serious. Sister, I heard, you and brother Qingjun had a falling out. It's not exactly a falling out. I set down my cup. We're getting a divorce. Her eyes widened slightly, a standard expression of shock. Ah, divorce? Why? We're not compatible. But, brother Qingjun has been good to you, hasn't he? I looked up at her. Her expression was still so gentle, so sincere, so caring, but deep in her pupils, I caught a glimmer of light. Bright. It is anticipation. She is expecting me to say, yes, I want a divorce. She is expecting me to step away from Fu Qingjuan's position, so that she can seamlessly. A faint smile curled at the corner of my mouth, but it didn't reach my eyes. Maybe, I said lightly, but this is my own decision, and it has nothing to do with anyone else. Well, she hesitated for a moment. Auntie is really worried. She asked me to tell you not to act impulsively. She said that every couple argues, and that she'll change too, that her attitude in the past wasn't good. Zhao Xilan will change. I almost laughed out loud. That woman who pointed at my nose and called me a jinx, would she ever change? Thank her for her kindness for me. I stood up. But once I've made up my mind, I won't change it. Sister, it's getting late. I still need to get back to the hospital for my shift. I took a few bills out of my bag and placed them on the table. I'll cover the tea. We can chat again sometime if there's a chance. As I walked out of the tea house, I didn't look back, but I could feel her gaze, sticking to my back. Sticky, like a snake's tongue flicking in the air. What information did she gather from this meeting? First, my attitude was firm. Second, I am not particularly pained or hesitant. Third, I did not mention anything about her and Fu Qingjun. She probably finds it strange. In her past life, Shen Yenan lived in the compound in constant fear and anxiety, always getting nervous at the mention of Lu Zhishuan. Now I am as calm as a still pool of water. She will overthink. Those who overthink are prone to making mistakes. And those who make mistakes are easy to deal with. It was almost 5 o'clock by the time I returned to the hospital. There weren't many people in the department. Most of the doctors had already left for the day, leaving only those on duty and a few residents writing medical records. I sat down at my desk, took out the registration form for the provincial surgical competition, and filled it out stroke by stroke. Name: Shen Yenan. Department: General Surgery Group 2. Title: Resident Physician. Recommender: Lin Zhengqing. After filling it out, I read the competition requirements again: laparoscopic simulation operation, suturing and knot tying timed tasks, and case analysis defense. I have done each of these countless times. A 2-month gap is not a problem. 5 years of surgical experience from my past life is still etched into my muscle memory. I put the registration form into the drawer and prepared to pack up and leave. Just then, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Hurried and heavy, not like the footsteps of doctors or nurses in soft-soled shoes. The footsteps stopped at the office door. I looked up. Fu Qingjun. His expression didn't look good. Not the cold, hard kind of unpleasantness, it was the kind that hadn't fully subsided after losing his temper. There were faint veins visible at his temples, and his breathing was heavier than usual. You met with Lu Zhishuan. The first thing out of his mouth was an accusation. I leaned back in my chair and looked at him. Yes. She asked me out for tea, and I went. I told you to stay away from her. When did I say that? He choked. Right. He never said it. He had never mentioned any boundaries regarding Lu Zhishuan to me. It was always assumed that I should accept her existence. Now you're telling me to ignore her. What did she say to you? His tone softened a little, but still carried an interrogative edge. Nothing much. Had a cup of tea. Chatted a bit. I stood up to grab my bag. More importantly, how did she know I was at this hospital? Fu Qingjuan's lips tightened slightly. I didn't tell her. Then how did she find out? Maybe it was my mom who told her. Zhao Xiulan. It was Zhao Xiulan again. I smiled. Slung my bag over my shoulder. Okay. I understand. Shen Yenan. He blocked the doorway. Let me finish what I have to say first. Go ahead. Lu Zhishuan. This person. He seemed to be organizing his words. I don't have the kind of relationship with her that you're thinking. She's just a younger, I know. His words were cut off. Clearly not expecting me to answer like that. You. No. I told you. The divorce isn't because of her. I looked into his eyes. It's because I don't want to live this kind of life anymore. It has nothing to do with anyone. Not even you. It's my own choice. His hands hung at his sides. His fingers clenching and then releasing. Then what exactly do you want? The question was asked very softly. So softly that it didn't sound like it came from the battalion commander who would shout himself hoarse on the training ground. I tilted my head to look at him. In my past life, he had never asked me this question. Never. What I want. I'll get it myself. I walked past him. You don't need to worry about it. He didn't stop me. As I walked out of the office, I heard him mutter a sentence behind me. I won't sign that document. I didn't look back. If they don't sign, then so be it. After all, time is on my side. Over the next month, I devoted all my energy to preparing for the competition and performing daily surgeries. Dr. Zhou took me into 6 surgeries, 3 gallbladder, 2 hernia, and 1 gastric perforation. I caught every single one of them steadily. My proficiency in laparoscopic operations has been steadily improving, and my suturing time has been reduced from 40 seconds to 28 seconds. Professor Lin occasionally comes to watch me practice, standing nearby without saying a word, just nodding. Once after practice, he said, "You've improved compared to before." Before, meaning before I resigned. He probably doesn't know that inside me lives a soul that has performed surgeries for 5 years. Those muscle memories, repeatedly practiced in a past life, are rapidly awakening in this young body. As for Fu Qingjun, he never came to see me again. But he would send a letter every week. The content was always brief. Training is busy this week. I'll come see you next week. It's getting cold. Remember to put on more clothes. I heard about the registration form. It's good. I read it, but didn't reply. The letters piled up in the drawer. And by the 4th week there were already 4 of them. Qian Hong saw it once and asked me, "Is that ex of yours still pretty persistent?" "Yeah. So, did you soften up?" "No." She gave a thumbs up. Tough. Tough. Huh. I just clearly knew that his concern wasn't love. It was a sense of responsibility. It was about saving face. It was the possessiveness of I can't lose what's mine. If he really cared, why in those 3 years at the compound in his past life, did he never once truly look at my situation? Not once. At the end of September, the day of the competition arrived. 23 contestants came to the medical center next to the provincial capital sports stadium, all young elites recommended by major hospitals. I drew number 7. The morning consisted of a written exam and case analysis, which wasn't difficult. The afternoon was hands-on practice, laparoscopic simulation box and suturing and knot tying. Standing in front the operating table, I took a deep breath. The shadowless lamp lit up. The timer ticked away beside me. The moment I picked up the instrument, my mind went blank. No Lu Jixuan. No Fu Qingjun. No nightmare on that rooftop. Only the needle and thread in hand. And the surgical field before the eyes. Suturing. Tying knots. Cutting the thread. Stitch after stitch. Even. Neat. And fast. 23 seconds. As I put down the instrument, I heard a low gasp from the judges' panel. Then came the timer's voice from beside me. Contestant number 7. 23.47 seconds. The entire venue fell silent for a moment. I took off my gloves and turned back to the waiting area. Qian Hong was waiting for me there. Her eyes wide open. Nianen, are you crazy? 23 seconds. The last champion was only a little over 25 seconds. Right? Lucky. I sat down to drink water. My hands were trembling. It wasn't nervousness. It was a normal reaction after the adrenaline wore off. But there was a fire burning inside me. Here. No one calls me Fu's wife. No one gossips about whether I'm good enough for him. Here. I am simply Shen Nianen. A surgeon. A good surgeon. The results came out the next morning. First prize. Top of the province. When Professor Lin called, I was eating noodles in the cafeteria. Xiao Shen. There was a rare hint of amusement in his voice. Well done. Thank you, Professor Lin. Next month, the health department has a special promotion quota. I've signed you up. You meet the requirements, just prepare the materials. I gripped the phone. Chopstick suspended in midair. An extraordinary promotion to attending physician. In my past life, I didn't become an attending physician until I was 32. And even then, it was only by grinding through the years, relying on seniority and waiting my turn. In this life, 26 years old. First prize in the competition plus Professor Lin's recommendation. Directly breaking the rules. 6 years earlier. Okay. I'll prepare. After hanging up, I looked down at the bowl of noodles. The soup noodles were still steaming, but my vision was a little blurry. It wasn't sadness. It was that feeling, after striving so hard to live, finally being seen. In those 3 years of my past life, I tied my entire worth to the identity of Fu Qingjuan's wife. Without that identity, I was nothing. That's why I was so afraid. Afraid of the rumors. Afraid of being abandoned. Afraid of losing my place in the compound. But now I know, Shen Nianen's worth has never needed anyone to define it. I wiped the corner of my eye and finished the noodles. As I walked out of the cafeteria, I ran into Dr. Zhou. I heard. First place. He patted me on the shoulder. The department is throwing a celebration for you this afternoon. Don't run off. Okay. When I reached the door of the department, I stopped. There was someone standing at the door. It wasn't Fu Qingjun. She was a woman. In her 40s. Dressed in a dark suit. With short hair. A stern face. And very thin lips. Zhao Xiulan. My mother-in-law had come in person. She stood there. And as she saw me approaching, her gaze swept over me like two knives. The corners of her mouth turned downward. Her face clearly expressing I'm very unhappy. Shen Nianen. Ms. Xiao. Her eyebrows furrowed slightly. Clearly displeased with the form of address. Come with me. I have something to tell you. Now is not a good time. I have an appointment this afternoon, I said. Come with me. Her voice rose sharply, drawing the attention of several nurses in the department. I looked at her. What would Shen Nianen from the past life have done? She would lower her head and obediently follow along, afraid of causing any commotion that would make her colleagues laugh at her. Then, in a place with no one around, she would be scolded mercilessly without daring to talk back. But now, Ms. Xiao. My voice was not loud, but it was clear. This is a hospital. It's where I work. You can say whatever you need to, but please don't shout here. Her expression changed. It wasn't anger at being contradicted, it was disbelief. Like a cat she had raised suddenly turning back to bite her. The door of the next office opened, and Dr. Zhou poked his head out. Xiao Shen. You're here. Come in. He saw Zhao Xiulan. Paused for a moment. This is my mother-in-law, I said. She came to see me about some personal matters. Brother Zhou. Go ahead with your work. I'll be right in. Dr. Zhou glanced at Zhao Xiulan's expression, then at me, said nothing, and closed the door. A muscle twitched on Zhao Xiulan's face. She probably hadn't expected me to be so composed in front of an outsider. Come on, let's talk outside. She turned and walked toward the end of the corridor. I followed her. At the end of the corridor, there was a small garden with 2 benches placed under a few ginkgo trees. She didn't sit down. Instead, she turned to face me, crossing her arms over her chest. What exactly do you want? Let's get straight to the point. I'm divorcing Fu Qingjun. Also getting straight to the point. Bullshit. Her lips twitched slightly, probably realizing the word wasn't very dignified, but she didn't take it back. What do you think the Fu family is? A place where you can come and go as you please. Back then, it was arranged by the organization and agreed upon by both families. I interrupted. It wasn't me clinging on shamelessly. Those words struck a nerve, and her eyes narrowed. You think you've grown wings now? Huh? Winning some lousy award and forgetting your own name. Broken Award. Top of the province. Her name is Broken Award. I looked at her, not angry. In my past life, words like this would have made me miserable for days. Now they feel light, with no weight at all. Ms. Xiao. Divorce is a matter between Fu Qingjun and me. My tone was flat. Coming here to say these things is pointless. Besides. I took a step forward, closing the distance slightly. Let me give you some advice. Don't let Lu Zhishuan run around anymore. An unmarried woman constantly hovering around a married man, it doesn't look good if word gets out. Zhao Xiulan's pupils visibly contracted. Her mouth opened, then closed. The air froze for 2 seconds. What did you say? I made myself very clear. I stepped back to keep my distance. If you truly care about your son's future, then keep that niece of yours in check. Don't let her ruin his prospects. That sentence hit precisely what Zhao Xiulan cared about most. It wasn't about her daughter-in-law's attitude, nor about saving face. It was about her son's future. An officer's clean reputation is more important than anything else. If word gets out that a married man is having an ambiguous relationship with an unmarried woman, even Zhao Xiulan, as muddled as she was, understood the consequences. Her face turned pale for a moment, and her lips trembled twice. Then she said, word by word, Shen Yenan, you've changed. Yes. I met her gaze without flinching. I've changed. She stared at me for a long time. In that gaze, there was anger, reluctance, but most of all, vigilance. It was as if she had suddenly discovered that what she had always thought was a sheep had bared its teeth. She said nothing more. She turned and walked away. Her high heels clicked against the floor tiles. As she walked out of the garden, her steps paused for a moment. She didn't look back. But I heard her mutter something under her breath. I didn't catch it clearly. Probably not something nice. I stood under the ginkgo tree, watching her figure disappear around the corner of the corridor. The autumn wind blows, carrying a hint of coolness. My fingertips are slightly numb. The calm just now was actually forced. Confronting this woman is more mentally draining than being on the operating table. But it's okay. In the first round, I did not back down. That is more important than anything else. On the 3rd day after Zhao Xiulan left, things indeed took a turn. But not in the direction I had anticipated. That afternoon, I had just finished a laparoscopic surgery and was changing clothes to grab a hot cup of water when Qian Hong hurried over. Nienan, take a look at this quickly. She was holding a letter in her hand, not an ordinary one, but the kind of craft paper envelope used by government agencies, stamped with red characters reading internal. Where did this come from? It was on your desk. Someone just delivered it, saying it was forwarded from the station. I opened it. Inside was an official letter from the military political department. The content was very brief. Comrade Shen Yenan. Upon investigation, during the period of your marital relationship with Comrade Fu Qingjun, you engaged in the act of leaving the military dependents. Station location without organizational approval. You are hereby ordered to provide a written explanation and cooperate with the organizational investigation before October 15th, signed by Political Department of a certain division. Stamped with a red seal. I read this piece of paper 3 times. The first time for the content, the second time for the wording, and the third time for the date of the signature. Then I smiled. What's wrong? Qian Hong was extremely anxious beside me. What does this mean? Are they investigating you? They're not investigating me. I folded the letter and put it back into the envelope. Someone is trying to scare me. Scare you? Who? What do you think? I didn't say it outright, but I had already figured it out in my mind. There were 3 peculiarities about this official letter. First, my application to accompany the military had indeed been approved, but I hadn't even reported to the station yet, so how could there be an unauthorized departure? I had never been there in the first place. Second, the wording was vague. Leaving without organizational approval, but a formal investigation letter wouldn't be written like that. It should cite specific regulation numbers. Third, and most crucially, this letter did not go through official channels. The proper procedure would have been to send it to the Civil Affairs Department or my employer in my registered residence first, not directly to the hospital. This is not an official document issued by the military. Someone used the military's name to privately print this and intimidate me. Who could have access to envelopes and letterhead with official seals? Who would make such a move at this hour? Zhao Xiulan. Or, someone acting on Zhao Xiulan's orders. That old lady is even more resourceful than I imagined. What are you going to do? Qian Hong was still worried beside me. Ignore it. Ignore it. What if it's real? It's not real. I stuffed the envelope into my bag. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. After returning to the rental house, I sat down and carefully analyzed the situation. The purpose of Zhao Xiulan's letter was clear, to scare me into going back. She wanted me to think I had violated the rules, to make me bow my head and retract the idea of divorce. In my past life, I might have actually panicked. Being a military family member meant a lot in this era. Once labeled as uncooperative with the organization, it would indeed have an impact on Fu Qingjuan's career. In my past life, what I feared most was dragging him down. So I would yield, cry and apologize, and voluntarily withdraw all my demands. But that was in my past life. In this life, I am well aware. This letter simply cannot withstand scrutiny. As long as I don't panic and don't voluntarily walk into their trap to cooperate with the investigation, it's just a worthless piece of paper. But I'm not going to let it go just like that. Since you want to scare me with fake documents, then I'll hold on to this leverage. The next morning, I did 2 things. First, I made 3 copies of the official letter. I locked the original in the drawer of my rented room, kept 1 copy in my bag to carry with me, and sent another to Fang Yuan, my law school classmate from university. Fang Yuan is now a lawyer at a law firm in the provincial capital. In my previous life, my relationship with her was just average, but in this life, she's useful. In the letter, I briefly explained the situation and asked her, if someone forges an official military letter to intimidate civilians, which legal provisions would be involved? The second matter, I called Fu Qingjun. The correspondent answered, Sister-in-law, Battalion Commander Fu today. I know he's busy. Just pass a message for me. Go ahead. Tell him, I received the things your mother sent. Quite creative. Next time, don't stamp the wrong seal. The correspondent was silent for 2 seconds on the other end, probably not quite understanding what that sentence meant. Sister-in-law. Is that all? That's all. Thank you. Hung up the phone. I know that once this reaches Fu Qingjuan's ears, he will definitely go ask Zhao Xiulan. And Zhao Xiulan, either she admits she did it, and then Fu Qingjun will have to face the fact that his own mother forged an official document, or she denies it, and that would be an even bigger problem. If it wasn't her, then who got hold of the military's envelopes and paper? Either way, she wouldn't have it easy. What is this called? Using your own spear to attack your own shield. 3 days later, Fu Qingjun arrived. This time he didn't knock. I got off work and returned to the building of my rented apartment, seeing him standing under the streetlight at the entrance of the unit. In early October, The provincial capital had already turned chilly. He wore a dark coat, no hat. His hair slightly tousled by the evening breeze. He held an unlit cigarette between his fingers. Seeing me approach, he stuffed the cigarette back into his pocket. Go upstairs and talk. It wasn't a question. I glanced at him, didn't refuse, and led him upstairs. After entering the room, he didn't sit down. He stood in front of the wall covered with clippings of medical literature and looked at it for a long time. Then he turned around. I didn't authorize that letter to be sent. That was his first sentence. I know. I asked my mom. His voice dropped. She said she didn't know. But I checked. The envelope is real. The official seal is a forgery. It used an old version of the seal. One that was replaced 3 months ago. The old version of the seal. So Zhao Xiaolan had an old seal that was phased out 3 months ago. Or perhaps the person handling this for her didn't know the seal had been changed. Have you found out who did it? I asked. Still looking into it. He looked at me. His gaze heavy. Shen Yenan. No matter who did it. I apologize to you. You shouldn't have to go through something like this. I leaned against the table. Arms crossed. This was a scene I had never experienced in my past life. Fu Qingjun apologizing to me. In my past life, he would only say, "Don't overthink it. I'll handle it." Or just stay home and wait. Never says "I'm sorry. I accept your apology," I said. But that's separate from the divorce. His jaw tightened. Do you have to get a divorce? Yeah. And the reason? You never gave me a reason that made sense. I looked at him. For a moment, I wanted to tell him the truth. Tell him I died once. Tell him Lu Zhishuan pushed me. Tell him someone orchestrated all of this from behind the scenes. But I didn't. Because even if I told him, he wouldn't believe it. A person who has never truly observed his wife's situation cannot be expected to believe such unbelievable things based on just a few words. The reason is that we're not a good fit. I said. You don't need to understand. You just need to accept it. He was silent for a long time. Then he did something I didn't expect. He walked to the table, took out the 4 unopened reply letters, the replies to the letters I had sent him, from his pocket, and laid them out one by one on the table. You haven't read a single one. It wasn't an accusation. It was a statement. I looked down at the 4 envelopes, the handwriting on them neat and sharp. No. Why? Because it doesn't matter. A faint, muffled sound, as if something was caught in his throat, escaped from him. Then he picked up the 4 letters and stuffed them back into his pocket. Okay. After saying this word, he fell silent for 3 seconds. Then he left. The sound of the door closing was very soft. Not as hard as last time. I stood still, listening to the sound of his footsteps descending step by step. Once he exited the building, the footsteps faded away. After about a minute, a very brief sound came from downstairs, the click of the lighter. He stood downstairs smoking. I walked to the window. Under the streetlight, his shadow was stretched long, the red tip of his cigarette flickering on and off in the darkness. Stood for a long time. Only when the cigarette burned out did he toss the butt into a roadside trash can and turn to leave. As his figure disappeared at the mouth of the alley, I pulled the curtains shut. No softening. Shen Yenan, you cannot be soft-hearted. His current concern is only because you have changed and left, and his sense of control has been shaken. It is not because of love. If it were love, in the 3 years of the previous life, he had 100 chances to stop those things that hurt me from happening. He never did. Not even once. I sat back down at the desk, took out my pen, and on that piece of paper, the one with the 3 names, added a small line after Zhao Xiaolan. Has access to old official resources and can find someone to forge documents. There may be accomplices behind her. And the 3rd person spot, that question mark. I stared at it for a long time. Suddenly, a detail came to mind. The day of the accident in my past life was family day. There were many people in the compound. But the rooftop, usually no one would go there. Lu Zhishuan's excuse for asking me to go up was, "It's quiet up there. And I have something I want to talk to you about." Sis. If there was a 3rd person waiting on the rooftop, that person must have gone up ahead of time. Ahead of time, even earlier than me. In other words, this was a premeditated act. Liu Zixuan was the executor. And that person was the mastermind. The mastermind had to meet several conditions. First, they must be able to enter and exit the compound, either a military family member or a soldier. Second, they must have a vested interest in my death. Third, having a reasonable alibi at that time, otherwise, suspicion would fall on them afterward. In the compound, who benefits the most from my death? Fu Qingjun. Impossible. He has no motive. And on the day of the incident, he was at the training ground with dozens of witnesses. Zhao Xilan. She has a motive, she despises me, but killing me would do her no good. Instead, it would implicate her son, Liu Zixuan. She's the executor, but in terms of motive, if I die, she can take my place. However, is that alone enough for her to dare to kill? Unless someone gave her enough courage. Someone promised her something. Or someone has leverage over her and forced her to act. That third person wasn't trying to help Liu Zixuan. They were using her. At that thought, a cold sweat broke out on my back. This matter is far more complicated than I thought. It's not just the jealous murder of a love-struck woman. There's something deeper hidden behind it. I folded the piece of paper and tucked it between the pages of a book titled Surgery. No rush. The clues will surface little by little. I just need to do one thing: live. Live well. Live solidly. Live powerfully. Wait until the one who is meant to come finds me. Wait until the things beneath the surface rise on their own. In mid-October, the approval for the exceptional promotion came through. The red-headed document from the Provincial Health Department bore my name in black and white. Shen Yenan, attending physician. A surgical attending at the age of 26, there had been only one such case in the entire affiliated hospital over the past decade. The day the news spread, the department was in an uproar. Dr. Zhou was the first to pat me on the shoulder. Impressive. Truly impressive. Even the old director from the orthopedics department next door came specifically to take a look at me, sizing me up for a long time before blurting out, "Lin Zhengqing's student. The younger generation is formidable." Qian Hong directly hugged me, shouting in my ear, "Nienan, you're amazing. Treat us. Treat us. Treat us." I was dizzy from her shaking and pushed her away with a smile. "Fine. Barbecue tonight. My treat." That evening, a few close colleagues from the department went to the food stalls across from the hospital. Skewers, beer, peanuts, and edamame were spread across the table. After 2 bottles, Qian Hong started going wild, throwing her arm around my neck and saying, "Shen Yenan, you remember this, when you become the director. Don't forget your old sister here. Won't forget." I clinked my glass against hers. The night breeze scattered the smoke from the barbecue, and the streetlights stretched the shadows of beer bottles into crooked shapes. At this moment, I felt at peace. No compound, no gossip, no cold home, just a group of colleagues sitting by the roadside, eating meat and drinking, cracking a few dirty jokes, laughing until they doubled over. This is what life should be like. It was almost 11 when the show ended. Qian Hong had drunk too much, and Dr. Zhou's wife came to pick her up. I walked back to my rented room by myself, stopping by the alley entrance to buy a bottle of water to sober up. When I reached the bottom of the apartment building, I stopped. Someone was sitting on the steps at the entrance of the corridor. By the light of the street lamp, I saw a pair of army green pant legs and a pair of black training boots covered in dust. Fu Qingjun looked up. His complexion was even worse than last time. There were dark circles under his eyes. His cheeks were slightly sunken, and his lips were chapped. "It looks like you haven't slept much in days. Have you been drinking?" He stood up, catching the smell of alcohol on me. "Department dinner." I didn't ask when he had arrived. "How long have you been sitting here?" "Not long." Liar. 3 or 4 cigarette butts were scattered on the steps. All of the same brand, his old brand. Hongmei. I didn't call him out on it and walked straight upstairs. "Come up to talk or just sit here?" He followed me up. Once inside, I poured him a glass of water. He didn't drink it. Instead, he stood in front of the wall covered in documents, just like last time. But this time, he wasn't looking at the clippings. His gaze fixed on something newly pasted in the corner of the wall, It is a photocopy of the exceptional promotion announcement from the provincial health department. Above are my photos, resume, and competition results. He stared at it for a long time. Congratulations. Thank you. Silent for a few seconds. About that letter. He turned around. I've looked into it. I put down my glass and looked at him. My uncle helped my mom handle it. He works in the division logistics and can get old envelopes and discarded stamp molds. Uncle. Fu Qingjuan's uncle. Fu Jiangwo. In my past life, I didn't have a strong impression of this man. I only remembered that he was a logistics officer, rarely around, and would bring his family over for meals during holidays. I've talked to him. Fu Qingjuan's voice was very low. This kind of thing won't happen a second time. Talked? How did you talk to him? I made the stakes clear to him. He knows better than anyone the nature of forging official documents. I nodded. What about your mother? His Adam's apple moved. I told her as well. From now on, she's not allowed to interfere in our matters. Our matters? I let out a faint smile. Fu Qingjun, there is no us between us anymore. His lips pressed into a straight line. Silence for a few seconds. Then he took something out of the inner pocket of his coat and placed it on the table. It was the divorce agreement. But, no signature. I'm returning this to you, he said. Not because I agree, but because I owe you a proper answer. He looked at me. You asked me before if I liked being with you. My heart skipped a beat. To be honest, when I got married, I wouldn't say I was in love. My mom arranged it. The conditions were suitable, and I had reached the age where I should settle down. His voice was flat, as if he were delivering a work report. But after you left, these 2 months, he paused for a moment. His right hand unconsciously rubbed the lighter in his pocket. I've noticed something is wrong. What's wrong? The barracks are empty after you leave. They were empty before too. But now, knowing you won't come back, it's a different kind of empty. He said this without looking at me, his gaze fixed on a non-existent point on the floor. I don't believe you'll read it anyway. You're not answering calls either. It's as if a whole piece of me has been ripped out of life. But that's not called liking, I said. He looked up. Yes. So I didn't sign. Because I want to figure out. There was something in his voice I had never heard before. Like confusion. Or some kind of clumsy honesty. What this really is. I look at him. This man, 30 years old, has led troops, fought in battles, and can run 10 kilometers on the training ground without changing his expression. But when faced with the word emotion, he couldn't even recognize his own feelings. In my past life, I waited 3 years for him to figure things out. Wait until death. He didn't figure it out at all. Fu Qingjun. I pushed the agreement back in front of him. Take your time thinking. But I won't wait for you. He looked down at the agreement. His fingertips touched the edge of the paper and paused for a moment. And then, he picked it up and put it back in the inner pocket. Give me 3 months. He said. What? 3 months. He looked at me. If I still can't explain it clearly after 3 months, I'll sign. I opened my mouth, not expecting him to propose this condition. 3 months. Until January of next year. Last life. What happened in January of the previous life? I quickly recalled. In January 1994, Lu Zhishuan officially moved into the family quarters of the compound. Zhao Xiulan had applied for the housing for her under the pretext of taking care of the elderly. From then on, the rumors in the compound grew even worse. Because Lu Zhishuan lived only 1 building away from Fu Qingjuan's dormitory. If this life were also January, wait, etc. If Fu Qingjun gave a 3-month deadline, and Lu Zhishuan intensified her efforts during these 3 months, he can then see some things clearly on his own. No need for me to say it. He will see it himself. I made a decision. Okay. 3 months. His shoulders visibly relaxed. But there's a condition. I held up one finger. Go ahead. During these 3 months, I won't meet with you, nor will I actively contact you. You just go about your life as usual. He frowned. Second. I raised a second finger. If anyone at all, comes to harass, threaten, or cause me trouble in these 3 months, whether it's your mother or someone else, I won't wait any longer. I'll file a lawsuit directly. His jaw tightened for a moment. Third. I put down my hand. 3 months from now, regardless of the outcome, you will respect my choice. Okay, he answered very bluntly, like receiving an order in a military camp. I almost wanted to laugh. That was probably the only way he could handle this kind of thing, treating everything as a task. Then that's it. I stood up to open the door. Take care on the way. He walked to the door and glanced back. Your competition, first place. It's pretty good. Then he left. After the door closed, I stood there, my heart feeling as if something had gently stirred it. A very slight tremor. But it quickly subsided. Shen Yenan, don't be foolish. The 3 months weren't for him. It is for yourself. 3 months, enough time for you to become stronger. And enough time for those in the shadows to reveal themselves. November in the provincial capital began to turn cold. Plane tree leaves spiraled down, carpeting the road in front of the hospital. My days entered a state of high-speed operation. Every morning at 7, I arrived at the department, rounds, surgeries, writing medical records, reading literature. Dr. Zhou began to let me independently perform some medium and small surgeries. The first one I completed was an acute appendicitis case. A 17-year-old high school student sent in through the emergency room in the middle of the night, sweating from the pain. From incision to suturing, it took 40 minutes. The student's mother was crying uncontrollably outside the operating room. After I came out, she grabbed my hand and wouldn't let go. Dr. Shen, thank you for saving my son. I patted the back of her hand. It's just a minor surgery. Don't worry, you'll recover in a few days. By the time the night shift ended, the sky had already brightened. I stood on the rooftop of the inpatient building, not that rooftop, but the one here at this hospital, and let the cold wind blow for a while, watching the distant city slowly wake up, people starting to ride bicycles on the roads, and breakfast stalls being set up. The warmth of everyday life. The feeling of being alive. One day in mid-November, Fang Yuan, my law school classmate, invited me to dinner. She was thinner than I remembered, with a sharp short haircut and a fast-paced way of speaking, a typical lawyer's demeanor. I've read the letter you sent me. She tapped the table with her chopsticks. Forging military documents is a serious offense. If you want to pursue it, under current regulations, no pursuit. I picked up a piece of pickled fish with my chopsticks. Keep it, as a trump card. She raised an eyebrow. You've changed a lot. Back in school, you were the most honest one. People always change. Okay. She handed the envelope back to me. I've prepared the legal opinion for you. In duplicate. If you ever need it, just come find me anytime. How much? Just treat me to this meal. She smiled and raised her chopsticks. Friends and classmates discount. As we parted ways after the meal, she suddenly called out to me. Nyenan. About your divorce. If the other party keeps refusing and you need to go to court, come to me as well. I looked at her earnest face. Okay. In late November, an unexpected person came to see me. That day, I had just finished a gallbladder surgery and was changing clothes to go have lunch. As I walked out of the operating room, a young woman was standing in the hallway, in her early 20s, with a round face and small eyes. She wore a gray jacket and looked a bit reserved. Seeing me come out, she hesitantly stepped forward. Excuse me, are you Dr. Shen Yenan? Yes, that's me. And you are? She glanced around and lowered her voice. My name is Lu Jilan. I am Lu Zhishuan's younger sister. My footsteps came to a halt. Lu Zhishuan's younger sister. In my past life, I vaguely recall hearing that the Lu family had a youngest daughter, but I never saw her. Dr. Shen. Could I have a word with you alone? She twisted her fingers, her gaze darting away. About my sister. There's something I want to tell you. I looked at her. Her nervousness didn't seem like an act. Her lips trembled slightly, and her fingertips turned pale. She was afraid. Let's go, I said. There's a quieter corner over by the cafeteria. When we got to the cafeteria, I got her a meal. She declined a couple of times but still took it. After sitting down, she didn't speak for a long time, just poking at the food in the box with her chopsticks. I didn't rush her, etc. Finally, she lifted her head. Dr. Shen. My sister. She's not a good person. I remained silent, just watching her. Lu Jilan's eyes reddened. She's been like this since she was little. Whatever she wants, she has to have it. When we were kids, it was my toys, my allowance. When we grew up, it was other women's men. She swallowed. I know she's been chasing after Battalion Commander Fu. She told me herself. She said that position would be hers sooner or later. What position? Battalion Commander Fu's wife. Lu Jilan looked at me. She said, she has a way to get you out. The air seemed to freeze for a moment. When did she say that? Last month. After she returned from the provincial capital. Last month, right after meeting me at the tea house. What did she say? Her exact words. Lu Jilan bit her lip. She said, that woman has changed. She's not easy to deal with anymore. But it's fine. Someone will help me. Someone will help her. My back tensed up. Who? Who will help her? I don't know. Lu Jilan shook her head. She didn't say a name. But she made a phone call and addressed the person on the other end as Aunt. Aunt. My mind was racing. The person Lu Jishuan called Aunt, a relative from the Lu family. Wait. Zhao Xiulan said that Lu Jishuan is her cousin's granddaughter. Then what about Lu Jishuan's aunt? If it's her father's sister, what does that have to do with Zhao Xiulan? Or could it be, the aunt Lu Jishuan called was not a real aunt, but a term of respect? Just like Zhao Xiulan, a woman of high seniority in the compound. I took a deep breath. Lu Jilan. I looked at her. Why are you telling me this? Her chopstick stopped. Tears fell without warning. Because I'm scared. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. The motion rough. I'm afraid she might actually do something. Last time she threw our neighbor's cat off the 3rd floor. Just because the cat scratched her dress. Thrown off the 3rd floor. My palms instantly turned cold. The cat. The 3rd floor. In my past life, I was pushed from the 4th floor. She's been like this since she was a child. Lu Jilan's voice trembled. If she can't have something she wants, she destroys it. I'm afraid of her. I'm afraid. She didn't finish that sentence. But I understood. She was afraid her sister would do that kind of thing to me. And she, a small town girl with little power, the only thing she could do was run and warn me in advance. I reached out and held her hand, which was constantly twisting her fingers. Thank you. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. Dr. Shen, be careful. My sister, when she goes crazy, she really will do anything. I know. I let go of her hand, pulled a tissue from my bag, and handed it to her. What about you? Are you safe? Won't she find out you came to see me when you go back? No. She wiped her face. I told her I was coming to the provincial capital to see a friend. She doesn't care about me. All right. If you hear or see anything later, can you let me know? She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I'll leave you my address. I fished out a pen and paper from my bag and wrote down the address of my rental apartment. Just send a letter. No need to call, it's safer. She carefully folded the note and tucked it into the pocket of her underwear. Dr. Shen. I'm sorry. For everything my sister did. It has nothing to do with you. I looked at her. You've already done what you needed to do. Her eyes were still red when she left, but her steps were much steadier than when she came. I watched her walk out of the cafeteria, then looked down at the bowl of rice in front of me, which had already gone cold. I hadn't taken a single bite. There was only one thing on my mind, Aunt. The person Lu Jishuan called Aunt. The one who could help her say let me go. Who could it be? In the compound, the women with seniority, influence, and a close relationship with Zhao Xiulan. I recall the people from the compound in my past life. The division commander's wife. Impossible. Someone of that rank wouldn't get involved in such matters. Zhao Xiulan's sister-in-law. Fu Qingjuan's second aunt, Fu Jiangwo's wife. What was that woman's name from my past life? I tried hard to recall. Sun Peifong. Right. Fu Jiangwo's wife. Sun Peifong. A lively woman in the compound. She has a sharp tongue. Loves to meddle. and always visits various households during holidays and festivals. In terms of seniority, if Lu Zhishuan calls Zhao Xiulan auntie, then Zhao Xiulan's sister-in-law can indeed be called aunt. And just now, the one who helped Zhao Xiulan forge the official document was none other than Fu Jiangwo. Fu Jiangwo's wife, Sun Peifong, who is in contact with Lu Zhishuan, helped her come up with ideas. This thread has been connected. Zhao Xiulan, Fu Jiangwo, Sun Peifong, Lu Zhishuan. One family, one chain. I stood up and went to dump the untouched meal. My fingers gripped the edge of the tray, knuckles turning white. The person standing behind Lu Zhishuan on the rooftop in my past life, short in stature, thin in build. Sun Peifong, 1 meter 5, thin and small, short hair. It's her. I placed my tray in the return area, turned around, and walked out of the cafeteria. The wind outside was cold, seeping into my neck, but my mind has never been this clear. The murderer has been found. The mastermind, Sun Peifong. The executor, Lu Zhishuan. Accomplices, Zhao Xiulan, Fu Jiangwo. The one who killed me in my past life was not a single person. It was a family. And Fu Qingjun, he knows nothing. Or rather, he has chosen to know nothing. This realization hit me like a bucket of cold water poured over my head. Standing on the steps of the cafeteria, watching the people coming and going, I suddenly felt a sense of calm. It is not the calm of letting go. It is the calm before battle. After confirming the enemy. Good. Now I know who you are. In this lifetime, none of you will escape. In early December, Professor Lin assigned me a task. Xiao Shen. There's a provincial academic exchange next week. The general surgery group needs to present a case report. Get it ready. What direction? The complex case of laparoscopic cholecystectomy you handled last month. The one with the gallbladder triangle variation. Write it up as a report, turn it into slides, and present it on stage for 15 minutes. Present it on stage. In my previous life, I had never given an academic presentation. By then, I was no longer in clinical practice. But in this lifetime, okay. I'm ready. Over the next week, I performed surgeries during the day and returned home at night to write reports and create slides. In 1993, there were no computers for making PPTs. Everything relied on handwritten manuscripts and overhead projector transparencies. I made sure every film was clearly marked, and the case photos were taken with the department's Polaroid camera, trimmed neatly, and pasted on. On the day of the exchange meeting, it was held in the lecture hall of the Provincial Medical Association. Attendees included the heads and deputy heads of surgery departments from major hospitals across the province. Along with a few experts from the capital, one name made my heart skip a beat. Wu Jingji, the director of general surgery at the affiliated hospital of Capital Medical University, a pioneer in laparoscopic surgery nationwide. In my previous life, I had read no fewer than 20 of his papers in medical journals. I never imagined I would see him in person. Even less did I expect to present a case in front of him. When it was my turn to go on stage, there were about 70 or 80 people sitting in the lecture hall. I walked to the front of the podium and placed the slides on the projector. I took a deep breath. The laser pointer in my hand was very light, but at that moment, it felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds. Good morning, esteemed professors. I am Shen Nianen from the 2nd General Surgery Group of the Provincial Medical University Affiliated Hospital. The case I am presenting today is a laparoscopic cholecystectomy involving anatomical variations of the Callot triangle. Once I started speaking, the nervousness actually faded. 15 minutes. I covered everything from the preoperative imaging to the selection of the surgical approach, from the management of aberrant vessels to the emergency plan for intraoperative bleeding. Every step is clear, and every decision is well-founded. When I reached the part about unexpected bleeding during the surgery, I noticed Professor Wu Jingji in the front row lift his head. Behind his glasses, his gaze became focused. The presentation is over. The audience was silent for 2 seconds. Then applause broke out. It wasn't the polite, courteous kind of clapping. A few people were clapping quite vigorously. During the Q&A session, a director from a neighboring city hospital stood up and asked a tricky question. If the cystic artery is completely encased in adhesions during surgery, what is your approach? I thought for 2 seconds. In retrospect, I would first bluntly dissect the lateral aspect of the callose triangle. After answering, the director nodded and sat down. Then, Wu Jingji raised his hand. All eyes in the room instantly turned toward him. Xiao Shen, right? His voice was gentle, carrying a Beijing accent. Your intraoperative hemostasis technique was quite impressive. That reverse clamping method, who taught you that? My hand gripping the laser pointer tightened slightly. Reverse clamping, this was a technique I had developed on my own through countless surgeries in my past life. There are currently no formal reports on it in domestic literature. It's an intraoperative real-time judgment. I carefully replied. I've practiced similar procedures on animal models before. Wu Jingji nodded and didn't press further. But I saw him write something in his notebook. After the exchange meeting ended, the crowd dispersed. While I was organizing the film reels, someone walked up beside me. I looked up. It was Wu Jingji. Up close, he appeared to be in his 50s, with graying hair but a spirited demeanor and an upright posture. Comrade Xiao Shen, he said, handing me a business card. This is my contact information at the affiliated hospital. Next year, we'll have a specialized training program on laparoscopic techniques, with limited spots. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. I took the business card, my fingertips slightly numb. Thank you, Professor Wu. You have a solid foundation. He smiled. Great potential for growth. After he left, I stood there holding the card, staring at it for a long time. The advanced training class at Capital Medical University. A place I couldn't even dream of getting into in my past life. In this life, it came to me on its own. Professor Lin appeared behind me at some point. What are you looking at? You're smiling so happily. I turned around and showed him the business card. He took it, glanced at it, and raised an eyebrow. Wu Jingji personally gave you his business card? Yeah. All right. He returned the business card to me and patted my shoulder. Do a good job. Don't let them down. I won't. On the way back, the sky had already darkened. The December evening wind carries the scent of winter, stinging the face with its chill. But in my heart, it feels as if I'm holding a warm piece of jade. Everything is getting better. I am growing stronger. And those people, just wait. When I stand tall and steady enough, the more arrogant you are now, the more miserable you will be then. In mid-December, Lu Jilan's first letter arrived. An ordinary white envelope, no return address. The postmark from a small county town. I opened it in my rented room. Inside was just a slip of paper, with a few crooked lines of writing. Dr. Shen, my sister has been going to the compound frequently lately, almost every day. Auntie has been treating her better and better, even giving her the key to Brother Qingjuan's room. Also, I overheard my sister on the phone with that aunt saying, "Let's talk about it after the new year." I don't know what it means. Be careful. Let's talk about it after the new year. January. The time when the 3-month agreement expires. What are they going to do in January? I folded the note and tucked it into that copy of surgery, placing it together with the paper bearing the 3 names. The evidence is slowly accumulating. The pieces of the puzzle are coming together, one by one. But there was still one thing missing: motive. Why would Sun Peifong help Lu Zhishuan harm me? Was the mere reason of my niece wants to marry Fu Qingjun worth the risk of murder? It didn't make sense. Unless Sun Peifong also had her own interests. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling for a long time. If Fu Qingjun divorced and remarried Lu Zhishuan, what benefit would that bring to Sun Peifong? The 2 Fu brothers, Fu Qingjun was the elder, and Fu Jiangwo was the younger. Fu Qingjun was on an official career path with a bright future ahead. What about Fu Jiangwo? A logistics officer, at the end of his career. If Fu Qingjun married Lu Zhishuan, who was related to their family by blood, then Lu Zhishuan would become the eldest sister-in-law of the Fu family. And Sun Peifong, Lu Zhishuan's aunt, transformed from the wife of a logistics officer into someone more tightly bound to a future division-level cadre's family. Interests. At the end of the day, it's still about interests. What Sun Peifong was betting on was Fu Qingjuan's future. As long as Lu Zixuan takes that position, her entire branch of the family will rise to power along with her. And I, a surgeon from the provincial capital, with no financial ties to her family whatsoever, am nothing but a stone blocking the way. A stone, just move it aside. If it can't be moved, then smash it to pieces. Once I figured this out, I became completely calm instead. Since it's driven by interests, it's easier to deal with than a simple crime of passion. Because interest-based relationships can be severed. As long as Fu Qingjuan's future becomes tied to Lu Zixuan as a negative asset, Sun Peifong would be the first to pull out and run away. By then, Lu Zixuan would be nothing more than an abandoned pawn. A discarded pawn without backing is nothing to fear. At the end of December, the provincial capital saw its first snowfall. I spent the entire day in the operating room, a gastric perforation repair in the morning and an intestinal adhesion release in the afternoon. By the time I came out, it was already dark, and the snow was still falling, with the streetlights making the snowflakes glisten. I wrapped my coat tighter and walked out of the inpatient building, planning to buy a bowl of wontons at the alley entrance for dinner. Just as I reached the main gate, a military green jeep was parked by the roadside. The headlights were on, and the windshield wipers slowly swept away the snowflakes falling on the windshield. The driver's door opened, and someone got out. It wasn't Fu Qingjun. He was a young soldier I didn't recognize. In his early 20s, not very tall, with an honest face, wearing a military overcoat, rubbing his hands and stamping his feet. "Excuse me, are you Dr. Shen Yenan?" "Yes, that's me. And you are?" "I'm Battalion Commander Fu's messenger, Xiao Lu." He stood at attention and saluted, his movements as precise as if he'd just come off the training ground. "Battalion Commander Fu asked me to deliver something to you." He turned and pulled 2 bags from the passenger seat. One was a bag of quilts and winter clothes. The other was heavy, and when opened, it revealed rice, noodles, cured meat, and a few apples. "Captain Fu said, it's getting cold, and he was worried about your living conditions here." I looked at the 2 bags and didn't speak for a moment. Xiao Lu stood there awkwardly, probably unsure whether to leave or not. "Where are the others?" I asked. "The battalion commander has an emergency training exercise this week and can't get away." Xiao Lu scratched his head. "He told me to make sure I hand this to you personally." Snow fell on the shoulders of his military coat, melting into small patches of dampness. I reached out and took the 2 bags. "Thank him for me. Sister-in-law, Dr. Shen. Is there anything else you want me to pass along?" I thought for a moment. "No. Take care on the road. Drive slowly in the snow." "Yes, sir." He saluted again, climbed back into the car, and started the engine. The jeep skidded slightly in the snow, steadied itself, and then slowly drove away. The red glow of the taillights grew smaller and smaller in the swirling snow, finally disappearing at the intersection. I stood in the snow, holding 2 bags of groceries. The quilt is very thick. The winter clothes are new, and the size fits me perfectly. The cured meat is wrapped in oil paper, smoked by the military canteen itself, carrying the fragrance of pine wood. There are 5 apples, bright red, placed on top of the bag. He remembers that I love apples. This detail made my nose suddenly sting, but it only lasted a second. I took a breath of cold air, picked up my things, and went back to my rented room. Once inside, I laid out the quilt, hung up the winter clothes, and put the rice and noodles away in the cupboard. The cured meat hangs on a nail by the window where the air flows. I washed an apple and took a bite. Sweet, crisp, juice bursts between my teeth. I sit by the window eating the apple, watching the snow fall heavier and heavier outside. Fu Qingjun. You, this person, in your past life, you also gave me things. Clothes, food, daily necessities. Every time you came back, you would bring large bags and small bundles home. But you never talked with me. You never ask how I'm doing in the compound. You never see how your mother and that sister of yours treat me. You've reduced care to material supply. Just like raising soldiers, ensuring logistics counts as fulfilling your duty. But people are not soldiers. Women cannot be appeased with just a bag of rice. I threw the apple core into the trash can and wiped my hands. No softening of the heart. I remember. No mercy. After New Year's Day, I received a second letter from Lujilan. This letter was much longer than the previous one, and the handwriting was even more hasty, as if it had been written in a panic. Dr. Shen, my sister had an incident. It's not a big deal, but I think you should know. Last week, the compound organized a family gathering, and my sister performed a dance. Afterward, many people praised her. Aunt Xiao said in front of everyone that she was more considerate than a real daughter. But Battalion Commander Fu didn't attend the gathering. That evening, my sister came back very angry and threw the cups. She called, "Auntie." And I heard her say, "He didn't even look at me. What's the use of this?" I couldn't hear clearly what Auntie said on the phone. But in the end, my sister said, "Fine, let's do it your way. Anyway, that woman won't be coming back after the new year." Dr. Shen, I'm really scared. That sentence, "that woman won't be coming back after the new year," I don't know what it means, but it doesn't sound like something good. You must be very careful. This is all I can do. I read the letter twice. After the new year, that woman won't be coming back. She won't be coming back. In my past life, I truly won't be coming back. Because I am dead. But this life is different. I was never in the compound. I was in the provincial capital. In the hospital. On my own turf. How were they going to make sure I never came back? Kill me. In the provincial capital. Unlikely. In the compound. The chaos of Family Day could serve as cover. But in the provincial capital, they don't have the home field advantage. Then there's only one other possibility, to socially destroy me. Destroy my reputation. Make it impossible for me to stay in the provincial capital. What means could achieve this? For a woman, the most fatal thing, rumors. And the kind of dirty, yellow, impossible to wash off rumors. My fingers tightened around the edge of the letter. In my past life in the compound, Lu Zhishuan used rumors to drive me step by step into a dead end. They say I bring bad luck to my husband. They say I'm indecent. They say I have connections with people outside. Are they going to pull the same trick again in this life? Fine. Bring it on. In my past life, I never knew who was stabbing me in the back. I could only passively endure the blows. In this life, I know. Not only do I know who it is, I also know when they will strike. After the new year. Late January. Early February. It's less than a month away from now. 1 month is enough for me to make my move. I took out a new piece of paper and began writing my plan. Step 1. Strengthen my own position. In the hospital. Maintain good relationships. Colleagues. Reputation. Leadership's recognition. Patients. Evaluations. These are my moat. When rumors come, these serve as a shield. Step 2. Gather evidence. Lu Zhilan's letter must be kept safe. But a letter alone is not enough. I need more substantial evidence. If they really spread rumors, I must be able to fight back. Step 3. Find their weak points. Sun Peifong and Fu Jiangwo, the forged official letter is their biggest leverage. If this matter is exposed, Fu Jiangwo's military career will be over. This is my trump card. But I can't use it now, the timing isn't right. The best moment is after they launch their attack. Let them strike first. Then, when they think victory is within their grasp, counterattack with all your might. Mid-January. The end of the New Year holiday is drawing closer. Everything is normal at the hospital. I performed 2 major surgeries, both of which went smoothly. After a ward round, Professor Lin said in front of the entire department, "Shaoshan's progress has exceeded my expectations." There was admiration in my colleagues' eyes, as well as goodwill. Qian Hong still eats with me every day, occasionally gossiping about the latest news in the department. Everything is calm. But I know a storm is coming. January 18th. That day was a Tuesday. I performed a surgery in the morning and was writing medical records in the office in the afternoon. Around 3 o'clock, the door to the department was pushed open. The front desk nurse poked her head in, with a somewhat strange expression on her face. "Dr. Shen, there's someone outside looking for you." Who? She hesitated. Says he's your husband's comrade in arms. I put down my pen and walked out. At the door stood a man in civilian clothes. He was in his 30s, of medium build, with a crew cut and a somewhat evasive look in his eyes. I don't know him. Hello. Excuse me, Dr. Shen. He lowered his voice, glancing left and right. Could we talk in private? I didn't move. Intuition tells me, there's something off about this person. Whatever it is, you can say it right here. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough. His expression shifted, as if he hadn't expected me to refuse. It's like this. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. I was a comrade in arms of Battalion Commander Fu. There are some things, about him, that I think you should know. He handed the envelope to me. I didn't take it. What is it? Well. He glanced around again. It involves something quite private. Better if you read it yourself. He placed the envelope on the windowsill of the corridor and then turned to leave. Wait a moment. I called out to him. He stopped. What's your name? Which unit are you from? He paused noticeably. Well, it's not convenient to say. Not convenient to say. Yet you came to me. A flicker of panic crossed his face. Very quick. But I saw it. Then he quickened his pace and left. He walked very hurriedly, as if fleeing. I stood still, watching his figure disappear at the end of the corridor. Then I turned to look at the envelope on the windowsill. White. Ordinary. No sender. No postmark. I picked it up. It wasn't opened. I turned it over and took a look. The envelope wasn't sealed shut, just loosely tucked. I didn't open it. Instead, I took it back to the office and locked it in a drawer. What's wrong? Qian Hong across from me looked up. Who's looking for you? Someone I don't know. They delivered an envelope. What kind of envelope? I don't know. Let's not worry about it for now. She gave me a suspicious look but didn't press further. After work, I didn't open the envelope at the hospital. Back in my rented room, I locked the door and drew the curtains. Then I put on a pair of rubber gloves, the kind I usually use for housework. Open the envelope. Inside are 3 photos. Black and white. The print quality isn't very good. Somewhat blurry. First photo. A man and a woman are eating in a restaurant. The man's face is turned to the side, making his features unclear, but his figure and clothing look like Fu Qingjun. The woman is also only captured from behind, with long hair flowing over her shoulders. Second image. The same 2 people walking down the street. The woman is holding the man's arm. Third image. The 2 are standing close together beneath a residential building, as if talking. The woman's face is finally half visible. It's not Lu Zhishuan. It's a woman I don't recognize at all. I placed 3 photos on the table and examined them carefully 3 times. Then I smiled. So this was their killer move. Fake photos. Made me think Fu Qingjun had someone outside. Made me emotionally collapse and actively cause trouble. The trouble escalated. My reputation was ruined. Lost the job. He's not coming back. What a clever move of using a borrowed knife to kill. No need to dirty one's own hands. Just a set of fake photos and a messenger posing as a comrade. The rest, let me collapse on my own. Go mad on my own. Destroy myself on my own. The Shen Yenan from my past life might have actually fallen for it. Back then, I was sensitive, fragile, and full of self-doubt. Seeing those photos, I would probably have run crying to confront Fu Qingjun, then ended up brawling with someone in the compound, losing my composure, and becoming the crazy woman in everyone's eyes. But in this lifetime, I put the photo away, placed it back in the envelope, and locked it together with the other evidence. This is not a bad thing. This is the handle of the knife they handed to me. Fabricating photos, hiring imposters to pose as military personnel, and deliberately defaming the reputation of officers, taken together. These charges are enough to land Sun Peifong and Lu Zhishuan in serious trouble. All that remains is to wait for the right moment to deliver all of this to the proper authorities. But before that, I need to clarify things with Fu Qingjun first. Not because I'm soft-hearted. It's because in this game, I need his cooperation. The 3-month agreement still has 2 weeks left. 2 weeks later, it's time to close the net. End of January. There are 3 days left until the 3-month agreement expires. I took the initiative to call Fu Qingjun. The correspondent answered. This time, the correspondent Xiao Lu sounded very cheerful. Sister-in-law, Dr. Shen. I'll go get the battalion commander. I waited for about 2 minutes. Hello. Fu Qingjun's voice. It was deeper and hoarser than the last time we met. It's me, I said. Yeah. A few seconds of silence. He probably didn't expect me to reach out to him on my own. 3 days from now. On Saturday. I said. Come to the provincial capital. I have something to show you. What is it? You'll know when you get here. He was silent for a moment. Okay. Saturday. 9 in the morning. The usual place. Downstairs from my place. Okay. Hung up the phone. Saturday. He arrived earlier than 9 o'clock. When I went downstairs at 8:40 to buy soy milk, I saw him already standing at the entrance of the building. Same as last time. Dressed in casual clothes. Carrying nothing. But this time, his mental state was a bit better than before. His complexion was normal, and the dark circles under his eyes were gone. When he saw me, his gaze lingered on my face for a moment. Lost weight. Busy. I handed him a cup of soy milk. Let's talk upstairs. We went inside. Without any small talk. I took everything out of the drawer directly. 2 letters from Lu Jilan. Forged military official correspondence. Legal opinion issued by Fang Yuan. Those 3 forged photographs. One by one, they were placed on the table. Fu Qingjun stood in front of the table, his gaze sweeping from left to right. Then he picked up the 3 photographs. After looking at them for 2 seconds, his pupils suddenly contracted. What is this? Someone delivered it to the hospital. They said it was from your comrade in arms. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Do you recognize the man in the photo? He brought the photo closer, his brows furrowing together. The angle deliberately avoids showing the face. The build looks like me, but it's not me. That day, he flipped the photo over to check the date written on the back. December 9th. I was at the training post. On a full-day field exercise. There's a sign-in record. I know it's not you. I said. He looked up at me. Then you, this was forged by someone. The goal was to make me think you were cheating. So I'd break down and go crazy. Ideally causing a huge public scene that would ruin both my reputation and my career. His fingers tightened around the edge of the photo. The paper emitting a faint crinkling sound. Who did this? Look at those things next to it. He picked them up one by one to examine. Lu Jilan's letter. He read it very slowly. Word by word. When he saw the line my sister said that position would be hers sooner or later. A muscle in his jaw twitched. When he read calling aunt on the phone, his hand froze. When he reached after the new year, that woman won't be coming back either. He put the letter down. His whole body seemed to be struck by something. He stood there, motionless. I looked at him. No urging, no questioning, no crying, no fussing. Just quietly watching him process the information. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Finally, he spoke. His voice was very soft, as if squeezed out through clenched teeth. My aunt. Sun Peifang. Yes. She was the one who instigated Lu Jishuan. Yes. The official letter too. Your uncle's doing. You checked it yourself. He closed his eyes. I saw his right hand trembling, not from fear, but from anger. That kind of suppressed, extreme rage that comes from being stabbed in the back by someone you've trusted for a long time. Fu Qingjun. I called out to him. He opened his eyes. Something in those eyes had changed. Cold. Sharp, like the gaze of a soldier staring down an enemy on the battlefield. In my past life, I had never seen him wear such an expression. Because in that past life, he had never known any of this. No one ever told him. And I, the me from my past life, died without ever knowing the truth. What do you want to do? He asked. His voice had completely turned cold. Devoid of any emotion. It is that calmness before making a decision. I have a plan. I walked over to the table and gathered the materials into a pile. But I need your cooperation. Go on. First, don't tip anyone off about this evidence. Eat as usual. Train as usual. Make your mom and your uncle's family think everything is normal. He nodded. Second, after the new year, around the 7th or 8th day of the first lunar month, find an excuse to invite your second uncle and aunt to your place. It would be best if your mother is also there. Why? Because on that day, I will have a lawyer formally submit these materials and legal opinions to the division's disciplinary inspection committee. His eyes flickered. At the same time, Lu Jilan will appear as a witness. She is willing to testify to the fact that her sister and son Peifong conspired to harm me. Are you sure she will cooperate? She came to me on her own. She is afraid of her sister. But she is even more afraid that her sister might actually cause a death. Fu Qingjun was silent for a moment. If the disciplinary committee gets involved, my uncle's military career will be over. Yes. He lowered his eyes. I looked at his profile. He was making a choice. A choice between family and justice. In his past life, he didn't have to make this choice, because he never knew the truth. He lived in an illusion that everything was fine, until I died, and only then did he belatedly realize that something had shattered. But even then, he didn't pursue it to the end, because he didn't want to face it. And now, I'm waiting. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. He lifted his head. I'll cooperate. 3 words. Without hesitation. My heart trembled slightly. I didn't show it. All right. See you on the 7th. He shifted his gaze back to the stack of materials on the table. These things. You found them all by yourself. Not entirely alone. Lu Jilan helped. Fang Yuan, my classmate, a lawyer, also helped. And what else? What else? He looked at me, with something complex stirring in his gaze. You've always known they were going to harm you. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I didn't deny it. You've always known. But you never told me. Would you have believed me if I had? His lips moved. But no sound came out. Then he said something. Very light. So light that I almost didn't hear it. I'm sorry. I looked at him. I'm not apologizing for this. He said. It's for, before. All of the before. You carried all of this alone. And I saw nothing. The air was still for a moment. Outside the window, children ran past downstairs, their laughter faintly drifting up. I took a deep breath. Apology accepted. I said. But that doesn't change anything. 3 months have passed. Once everything is settled, regarding the divorce, I still hold the same stance. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked over to the window and stood with his back to me for a moment. Then, we'll talk about it after it's handled. He finished speaking and left. This time he didn't look back. Didn't smoke downstairs. Didn't linger. The sound of footsteps went decisively down the stairs, out of the building entrance, and faded away. I stood by the window, watching his figure disappear at the alley's entrance. Let out a long sigh. Phase 1, complete. Next, it's just waiting for the new year. Spring festival. Battlefield. The end. The 7th day of the first lunar month. Winter in the north had yet to loosen its grip, and the wind at the base cut across the face like a blade. I took an overnight train and arrived in the county town before dawn. Qian Hong wanted to come along, but I stopped her. This is a family matter. I said. Just wait for my news at the hospital. Fang Yuan did come along. Her presence as a legal advisor was perfectly justified. After getting off the train, Fang Yuan stomped his feet and breathed out steam on the platform. 15 below zero. Is this place even livable for people? You'll get used to it. I pulled my cotton hat down and walked toward the exit. A military green jeep was parked at the exit. Little Lu leaned out from the driver's seat. Dr. Shen. Lawyer Fang. Get in the car quickly. It's warm. Once inside the car, the heater was running full blast. I asked little Lu. Are we there yet? We're here. Battalion Commander Fu invited everyone over yesterday. Aunt Zhao, second uncle, and second aunt are all at home. He said it's for a family reunion dinner for the new year. Reunion dinner. A good excuse. I closed my eyes in the back seat and ran through today's schedule in my mind one last time. Step 1. Arrive. Everyone is there. Step 2. Fu Qingjun takes the lead to start, saying, we need to talk face to face and get things straight. Step 3. Present the evidence. One by one. In order. Step 4. Fang Yuan, as a lawyer, reads out the legal consequences. Step 5. Give them a choice, admit their mistakes and cooperate with the investigation voluntarily, or wait for the disciplinary committee to summon them. Don't give them a chance to cry. Don't give them time to argue. Don't leave any room for them to collude. Strike to kill with one blow. When the car arrived at the Fu family's old residence, it was 9 in the morning. It was a 2-story standalone courtyard, left behind by the old master of the Fu family. Far more imposing than the cramped dormitory buildings of the compound, red brick walls, an iron gate, and 2 jujube trees planted in the yard. On the morning of the 7th day of the Lunar New Year, fresh couplets were still pasted on the door, and red lanterns swayed under the eaves. A scene of festivity and peace. I stood at the door. In my past life, I had also been here. Back then, I was the new bride, smiling as I served tea and kowtowed to the whole family. The look Zhao Xiulan gave me that day, thinking back now, was almost the same as looking at a defective product destined to be returned sooner or later. The door opened. Fu Qingjun stood inside. He was wearing a black sweater, with military pants and combat boots below. When he saw me, his gaze paused on my face for a second. Then it shifted to Fang Yuan behind me. Come in. Everyone's here. I stepped over the threshold. The courtyard was quiet, with only the lanterns under the eaves swaying slightly in the wind, letting out a faint creaking sound. The door to the main hall was half open, and from inside came the sound of voices and the clinking of teacups against the table. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The heating in the main room was on full blast, and as soon as you stepped through the door, a wave of warmth mixed with the aroma of braised meat rushed toward you. On the long table were sunflower seeds, peanuts, and several plates of cold dishes, as if they were truly preparing for a reunion dinner. 3 people sat around the table. Zhao Xiulan sat in the seat of honor, wearing a dark red padded jacket, her hair neatly combed, with a cup of tea placed in front of her. Fu Jiangwo sat to her left, in his early 40s, round-faced, slightly plump, wearing an old military-style jacket, lowering his head to crack sunflower seeds. Sun Peifong sat next to Fu Jiangwo. Thin and small, short hair, thin lips, exactly as I remembered. She was smiling and saying something to Zhao Xiulan, her voice not loud but speaking quickly. 3 people, all here. Seeing me come in, Sun Peifong's voice stopped first. Then Zhao Xiulan looked up. Her expression froze the moment she saw me. She probably hadn't expected me to show up here. How did you get here? Zhao Xiulan's teacup paused midair. Fu Jiangwo also stopped cracking sunflower seeds, looked up, and then glanced at Fu Qingjun at the door. Sun Peifong reacted the fastest. Her smile vanished for only half a second before quickly returning to her face. Oh, Nianan is here. Have a seat. Have a seat. We were just talking about you. I won't sit down. I stood by the table, my voice steady. I didn't come here to eat today. The atmosphere suddenly shifted. Zhao Xiulan set down her teacup. Fu Jiangwo still held half a melon seed in his hand, hovering near his mouth without putting it in. Sun Peifong's smile was still on her face, but her eyes had already begun to change, like a startled animal, rapidly calculating something. Fu Qingjun walked in from behind me and stood at the other end of the table. He did not sit down. His hands were clasped behind his back, his spine straight, his chin slightly tucked in, standing as if at a military meeting. I've called everyone here today. He spoke, his voice cold and hard, devoid of any emotion. There's something that needs to be clarified face to face. Zhao Xiulan's gaze flickered between me and Fu Qingjun a couple of times. What is it? In the middle of the new year, Mom. Fu Qingjun interrupted her. Don't speak yet. Listen first. Then talk. Zhao Xiulan's mouth opened slightly, then closed again. She had probably never heard her son speak to her in that tone before. Fu Qingjun looked at me. I took the document folder out of my bag. All the evidence was inside, arranged in order. Walking to the table, I pulled out the first piece of material and placed it in the center of the desk. A forged military official letter. This was sent to my workplace last October. I said. The envelope is real. But the official seal is a counterfeit. It uses an old version of the stamp that was phased out 3 months ago. My gaze swept toward Fu Jiangwo. His face visibly paled by a shade. The half-eaten melon seed in his hand finally fell, landing on the table with a soft clatter. Qingjun has already looked into it. I continued. The seal template came from the division's logistics section. And the only person in this room with access to the old seal template, Fu Jiangwo's Adam's apple moved up and down once. That was, Qingjun. Listen to me explain, don't rush. I raised my hand to stop him. It's not over yet. I pulled out the second one, 2 letters from Lu Jilan. This is a letter written to me by Lu Jixuan's younger sister. I placed the letter on the table and unfolded it. It records how Lu Jixuan and, my gaze shifted to Sun Peifong. Her aunt conspired against me. Sun Peifong's expression finally changed. The smile shattered like a mask. The curve of her lips remained, but the light in her eyes had completely gone cold. What do you mean? Her voice rose half a pitch. What, aunt? I don't know what you're talking about. You don't know. I looked at her. On the night of November 13th last year, around 9 o'clock, Lu Jixuan called you. She said. He won't even look at me. What's the point? I don't know what you said, but in the end, she said, fine, I'll do it your way. That woman won't be coming back after the new year anyway. Sun Peifong's face completely froze. As if someone had pressed the pause button. Zhao Xilan suddenly stood up beside her. What nonsense are you talking about? I know exactly what kind of person Peifong is, Mom. Fu Qingjuan's voice suddenly rose a notch. It wasn't a shout, but the oppressive feeling made Zhao Xilan freeze in place. Sit down. Fu Qingjun said. Listen to the end. Zhao Xilan's hand gripped the edge of the table, her lips trembling twice before she finally sat back down. I continue. The third piece of evidence, those 3 forged photographs. In mid-January, someone impersonating Fu Qingjuan's comrade came to my workplace and delivered these 3 photos. They wanted me to believe he was involved with someone else, aiming to provoke me into losing my mind, causing a scene, and ruining my reputation and career. I laid out the photos one by one. The date on the photo is marked as December 9th. That day, Fu Qingjun was on a full-day training exercise at the station, with sign-in records. The person in the photo is not him. I looked at Sun Peifong. The person who delivered the letter, I remember his face. If needed, I can cooperate with the police to create a composite sketch and identify him. Sun Peifong's breathing grew heavier. Her 2 hands gripped the armrests of the chair, her knuckles turning white. You made all this up. What evidence do you have to say it was me, the 4th one? I pulled out the last item from the file folder, a legal opinion issued by Fang Yuan. At the same time, Fang Yuan stepped forward from behind me. She was wearing a dark gray business suit, carrying a black briefcase, with her hair neatly tied up. Her entire demeanor exuded an aura of the lawyer is here. Someone's in trouble. Good afternoon, everyone. Her voice was crisp and professional. I am Fang Yuan, a lawyer from Fang Yuan Law Firm, and I am the legal representative of Ms. Shen Yenan. She placed the legal opinion letter on the table. Based on the evidence I have gathered, including the forgery of military official documents, hiring individuals to impersonate military personnel, deliberately fabricating visual materials to defame the reputation of soldiers, and orchestrating and carrying out threats against civilians, she enunciated each word, every one of them hammering into the air like nails. The legal provisions involved include, but are not limited to, the crime of forging official documents of state organs, the crime of impersonating military personnel to swindle and deceive, the crime of defamation, and the suspected crime of intentional injury, attempted. If the case is formally filed, these charges will be combined for punishment. Fang Yuan raised his head. His gaze fixed directly on Sun Peifong. The maximum sentence could be more than 7 years in prison. Sun Peifong's face was completely drained of color, white as a sheet of paper. And Fu Jiangwo beside him, his entire body had begun to tremble. It wasn't an act. It was that kind of uncontrollable muscle trembling from sheer terror. I don't know, this has nothing to do with me, he blurted out hastily, his voice quivering. It was all her, it was Sichuan. I just helped stamp a seal. I didn't know what they were going to do. Shut up. Sun Peifong turned around and shouted at him. But it was already too late. The moment those words left his mouth, it was as good as admitting on the spot that he had participated in forging the official document. Fang Yuan calmly pulled out a small tape recorder from his bag, the cassette type from 1993, and pressed the pause button. Recording all along. The moment Fu Jiangwo saw the recorder, it was as if his soul had been drained from his body. He slumped into the chair, his hands hanging limply at his sides. His lips quivered a few times, but he couldn't form a complete word. Sun Peifong's eyes darted rapidly. She was looking for a way out. This is all a misunderstanding. She forced herself to speak, her voice already lacking the confidence it had moments ago. I did have contact with Sichuan, but I didn't know she was going to. I just casually chatted a bit, and that led her to say, after the new year, that woman won't be coming back. I interrupted her. Sun Peifong. I was thrown from the fourth. I stopped short. Almost said it out loud. Almost blurted out something about a past life. Took a deep breath. I'm someone whose reputation and future were nearly destroyed by you. I corrected. Do you think that's just a misunderstanding? Sun Peifong stared at me, her chest heaving violently. Then she did something. She turned to look at Zhao Xiulan. That glance carried a plea, a hint, a meaning of say something for me, will you? And Zhao Xiulan sat in the main seat, motionless. Her facial expression seemed frozen. She never spoke from beginning to end. It's not that I don't want to speak. It's that I don't know what to say. Her worldview is being shattered. The obedient daughter-in-law has come forward with evidence. The sister-in-law she trusted has been exposed on the spot. And the well-behaved niece turns out to be a venomous snake. The Fu family order she prided herself on is crumbling piece by piece before her eyes. I looked at her. No anger. No satisfaction. Only a cold clarity. Ms. Xiao. I began. Her gaze finally focused on my face. From today onward, you need to understand one thing. My voice was not loud, but every word was enunciated clearly. I am not your enemy. From beginning to end, the one who pushed your son's future into the fire was not me. Her lips moved slightly. I pointed at Sun Peifong. It's her. Then I pointed at the non-existent Lu Zhishuan. And that, good niece, you raised with your own hands. Zhao Xiulan's eyes twitched violently. Then, I saw her hands begin to tremble. Not anger. Something deeper, fear. She finally realized that if these things were exposed, it wouldn't just be Fu Jiangwo who was finished. The entire face of the Fu family and Fu Qingjuan's political career would all be dragged down. And the instigator of all this, half of it was herself. It was she who brought Lu Zhishuan into this situation. It was she who provided Lu Zhishuan with the convenience to get close to Fu Qingjun. It was her indulgence and favoritism that emboldened these people. Qingjun. Her voice trembled as she turned to look at her son. Fu Qingjun stood there, expressionless. Mom, he said, I'll handle this matter. But from today onward, don't interfere in family affairs anymore. Zhao Xiulan's lips trembled slightly. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't. She just slowly sat up straight, her hands folded together on her knees, her head lowered. I withdrew my gaze and looked at Fang Yuan. She understood and turned to the last page of the legal opinion. Now, the parties present have two options, Fang Yuan said. First, voluntarily cooperate with the investigation. Sun Peifong and Fu Jiangwo will provide a written account of all the facts. Sign and seal it. As for Lu Zhishuan, the relevant authorities will summon her. Considering the proactive admission of wrongdoing and cooperative attitude, I will note in the opinion a recommendation for leniency. Second, refuse to cooperate. Then this material, including the recording, will be formally submitted to the division's disciplinary inspection committee tomorrow morning. At the same time, I will act on behalf of Ms. Shen Yan'an to file a criminal private prosecution with the military court. She closed the file. Choose one of two. Make your decision now. The main room was so quiet that the sound of water flowing through the heating pipes could be heard. Sun Peifong's lips had lost all color, constantly opening and closing like a fish gasping for oxygen. Fu Jiangwo was in even worse shape, his entire body curled up in the chair, his back hunched like a frightened shrimp, his hands constantly rubbing against each other. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. Fu Jiangwo broke down first. I'll cooperate. He suddenly stood up from the chair, his voice trembling with tears. All right, I'll confess everything. I really didn't know they were going to harm anyone. I just helped stamp a seal. Sit down. Sun Peifong cut him off sharply. But her voice was already trembling. She looked at Fang Yuan, then at Fu Qingjun. Finally, her gaze landed on me. In those eyes, there was hatred. There was unwillingness. There was the bewilderment of how did things end up like this. But more than that, there was the resignation of knowing the tide had turned. Okay. When the word was forced out of her mouth, her shoulders slumped, like a string that had been stretched too long finally snapping. Fang Yuan nodded, took out the pre-prepared blank testimony paper and pen from his bag, and placed them on the table. Please write separately. Do not consult each other, and do not leave anything out. I will supervise from the side. Fu Jiangwo almost snatched the paper and pen, then bent over the table and began writing. Sun Peifong was much slower. When she picked up the pen, her hand trembled violently, and the tip left 2 ink blots on the paper before she could write the first character. I stood by, watching all of this. No exhilaration, no excitement, only a deep, heavy sense of closure. Past life, those rumors, those grievances, those cries for help unheard in the darkness, the last glimpse of sky seen when falling from the 4th floor, now, in this well-heated hall, under these trembling pen tips. Stroke by stroke, an account is given. After the testimony was written, Fang Yuan checked and confirmed it, then signed, pressed his fingerprint, and marked the date. The entire process took less than 40 minutes. When he walked out of the Fu family's old mansion, the sun outside had already risen higher. The sunlight shone on the snow, blindingly white. I stood at the courtyard gate and let out a long breath. The white mist dissipated in the cold air. Fang Yuan patted me on the shoulder from beside me. Done. I'll follow up on the rest of the process. You can head back to work without worry. Thanks. Classmate Bond. No need to thank me. She smiled. Just treat me to a good meal sometime. Xiao Lu was waiting at the alley entrance in the jeep. Fang Yuan got in first. She had to catch the afternoon train back to the provincial capital. I didn't immediately follow, because someone came chasing after me from behind. Shen Yenan. Fu Qingjuan's voice. I turned around. He stood on the steps at the entrance of the courtyard, backlit, his face barely discernible in the shadows. But I could feel him looking at me, looking very intently. It's all taken care of, he said. As for Lu Zhishuan, I'll go talk to her myself tomorrow. I'll tell her to leave the compound and never show up again. Okay. Silence for 2 seconds. Then, about the divorce. His voice was a little hoarse. I looked at him. The winter sunlight turned the snow behind him into a mirror of shattered silver. His shadow stretched long and fell at my feet. In my past life, I lived by this man's side for 4 years. In 4 years, he never once looked at me seriously, never once listened to me carefully. I lived as a shadow, and in the end, even the shadow didn't remain. In this life, he saw me. But what of it? Fu Qingjun. I said. You are a good soldier. His lips moved slightly. But you are not a good husband. He did not argue. Your concern came too late. I said this calmly, as if stating a fact. It was only after I changed, after I left, after you panicked, that you started to wonder. What does this person mean to me? But this question, it shouldn't have been answered by my leaving for you. He lowered his gaze. I know. So, the divorce. It's still on. I pulled an envelope out of my bag and handed it over. The agreement. Freshly printed. Whenever you've made up your mind, just sign it and send it to me. He took the envelope. When his fingertips touched mine, the warmth passed through. It was warm. But I withdrew my hand. Take care, I said. Then I turned around and walked toward the jeep at the alley entrance. There was no sound behind me. He didn't call out to me. He didn't chase after me. As I reached the car door, I suddenly heard an extremely soft voice from behind. When I figure things out, can I come find you again? I paused for a moment. I didn't look back. The snow crunched under my boots. Tell me when you figured it out. I pulled open the car door and got in. The Jeep started. Xiaolu drove the car out of the alley and turned onto the main road. In the rearview mirror, Fu Qingjuan's figure grew smaller and smaller, standing still in the middle of the vast white snow, holding that envelope in my hand. Until the car turned the corner, his figure completely disappeared into the mirror. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. Tired. Not physical, it's the feeling of being completely hollowed out after carrying something from start to finish. But at the same time, also lighter. Unprecedentedly light. Like a boulder that had been pressing on my chest for 4 years. Finally lifted away. No, it's 2 lifetimes. The weight of 2 lifetimes combined. Today, all of it has been unloaded. It was already evening by the time I returned to the provincial capital. Qian Hong was waiting for me at the train station. The first thing she said when she saw me come out was, "Did you get it done?" "Got it done." They admitted it. I admit it. Great. She threw her arms around my neck. "Let's go. Celebrate. I'm treating you to hot pot." She dragged me out of the train station. The neon lights of the provincial capital flickered red and green in the night, and the crowds bustled to and fro. The hot pot restaurant was steaming, the spicy aroma so intense it brought tears to your eyes. Qian Hong cooked a plate of fatty beef for me and placed it in my bowl. "Nianan. Are you happy now?" I chewed on the fatty beef and thought for a moment. "Happy. That's good." She raised her beer glass. "To Shen Nianan. To your new life." I clinked my glass with hers. The beer was ice cold. As it went down my throat, the coolness slid all the way from my esophagus to my stomach. But my heart was warm. 1 month later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. It was made of craft paper, bearing that familiar, firm and powerful handwriting. I opened it. Inside is the divorce agreement. The last page, in the signature column, 3 words are written. Fu Qingjun. Date, February 26, 1994. A note was attached beside it. Only 1 line of text. "I've figured it out. You deserve better. Take care." I read the note 3 times. Then I folded it and placed it inside that copy of surgery, together with all the previous letters, notes, and evidence. No, not placed together. It is to say goodbye to them. Everything tucked inside this book belongs to the past. From now on, they are merely evidence and mementos. No longer shackles. In early March, I submitted the documents to the Civil Affairs Bureau. A week later, the divorce certificate was in hand. 2 small green booklets, with the words divorce certificate printed on the covers. I put them away, tucking them into the bottom drawer. Then I left for work. The sunlight was beautiful that day. Spring has arrived in the provincial capital. The willow trees by the roadside have sprouted new buds. A light green so tender it seems you could pinch water out of them. I ride my bicycle through one street after another, the wind rushing past my ears, lifting the hem of my white lab coat. Arriving at the hospital entrance, I parked the bike. Looking up, I saw the words Affiliated Hospital of Provincial Medical University on the inpatient building, shining golden in the sunlight. My position. My battlefield. The place where my name should appear. Pushing open the door to the department, Qian Hong was inside explaining medical records to the new intern. Seeing me come in, she waved at me. "Nianan, Professor Lin is looking for you. He said the spot for the advanced training program in the capital has been confirmed." My footsteps paused for a moment. Then it sped up. On the way to Professor Lin's office, I passed by the corridor window. Outside the window was the hospital garden, where several magnolia trees had already bloomed. The white petals trembled slightly in the spring breeze. I glanced but did not stop. I kept walking forward. My steps were steady. My steps were fast. Shen Yenan, 26 years old. Attending surgeon. First place in the provincial surgical competition. About to go to Beijing for further study. Single. Free. Alive. Good. Solidly. Alive. The end. Dear readers, could you please rate this story in the comments? Use a 10-point scale. Please. If you like this type of content, follow for more.